information. You probably even use things like two-factor authentication, strong passwords, VPN. But as much as you try to be in control of how your information is protected, there's lots of places that also have it. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every single second for identity threats. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock specialist is going to help solve the identity theft issues, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% off your first year with a promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Shoot. Hun, I can't fix this leak.
That's okay, babe. I'll get a plumber.
Oh, boy. What's that going to cost?
I'll let you know in 60 seconds.
Huh?
For a rapid estimate on a plumbing repair, just go to CenterGuardPlumbing.com. Use the easy price calculator and get a quote for many jobs in just 60 seconds.
Okay. It's not going to be much, babe.
Okay. That was fast.
Serving the entire Chicagoland area since 2005, CenterGuard Plumbing is your trusted source for quick, lasting repairs, sewer services, water line solutions, water heater service, to whole house water treatment. And with their online easy price calculator, you can get a free quote in just 60 seconds. Trust CenterGuard to do the job right. Quality work at the lowest prices around. They're family owned with top-notch plumbers that are licensed, bonded, and insured. Whether installing a new faucet or plumbing a new home, you can count on CenterGuard. Get your free quote now at CenterGuardPlumbing.com. They're ready to help.
Want to see if you could pay less in taxes? Try the quick and easy tax calculator at willsave.com. Yes, a free tax calculator. That's WILSAVE.com. Calculate how you could keep more of your hard-earned money and give less to Uncle Sam, especially in retirement. Get your free tax analysis today at willsave.com. And don't forget to tune in to Protecting Your Assets with Steve Shyman every Saturday morning at 8, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Do you have diabetes or high blood pressure? Does someone in your family have high blood pressure, diabetes, or kidney failure? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are at risk for kidney disease and should get screened. The National Kidney Foundation Illinois offers free health screenings through the Kidney Mobile. To find a free screening in your area, please visit kidneymobile.org or call 312-321-1500.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth, that glowing smile will show through. At Best Dental Group, doctors Economos, Gave Alice, and their staff are ready to help you create that perfect look or maintain the one you have now. Along with general dentistry, Best Dental Group is a multidiscipline practice with an orthodontist, periodontist, and prosthetic specialists on site. They use the newest breakthroughs in dental technology such as titanium implants, Invisalign clear braces, and laser treatments. Don't let fear get in the way. They can recommend sedation to make your experience as comfortable as possible. Best Dental Group is located in historic downtown Bartlett and is a multilingual office. Call 630-830-4930, 630-830-4930, or visit bestdental.org. Best Dental Group, sharing your conservative values and helping you to conserve your teeth.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be partly sunny and pleasant with a high of 77. Expect partly cloudy skies tonight with a low of 57. Tomorrow will bring a mix of clouds and sun, reaching a high of 81. Thursday looks mostly sunny and warm with a high of 82. Friday will be very warm with a mix of sun and clouds, reaching a high of 86. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and the political football that the murder of Ukrainian refugee Irina Sarutska has become. Because, why? Because, according to the D.C. press corps, because MAGA world is making a big deal about it, particularly over the weekend after the video of what happened to her on that train in Charlotte went viral. You see the surveillance of the assailant sitting behind her and stands up, and then it freezes because you don't want to see him actually plunge the knife into her, but that's what happened, killing her on that train. And for all of those Ukrainian enthusiasts on the left, refugee has to come here to get killed commuting in Charlotte. Trump yesterday, speaking at the U.S. Bible Museum, had some words on the topic, and that folded into some words for Chicago.
And there was also a horrible killing recently in Charlotte, where I talked about, and so many others, and we're going to get to the end of it. And, when you have horrible killings, you have to take horrible actions. And the actions that we take are nothing. This cashless bail started a wave in our country where a killer kills somebody and is out on the street by the afternoon. In many cases, going out and killing again. Cashless bail, and you try and reason with people like in Chicago with the governor and the mayor. You try and reason with them, and it's like you're talking to a wall. It's just doesn't. I assume it's just a political ideology. They're not stupid people. Must be an ideology that's just buried in their head, and you can't do a damn thing about it. And we'd love to go into Chicago and straighten it out.
Trolling Chicago again. You're talking to a wall when it comes to dealing with the governor and the mayor here in Illinois and Chicago. Yeah, that sounds about right. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. The commentary on no cash bail, it's nice to see that even if we can't get the Chicago Press Corps to pay attention to the ravages of the Safety Act, we at least have a president who is paying attention to what no cash bail implicates for anywhere it's tried, Chicago, New York. But not to worry, Mr. President, because we figured out here in Chicago that it's not an ideology problem and it's not a policy problem. It's just a marketing problem. What Chicago has is strictly a marketing problem, and thankfully, those committed ideologues that the president was describing, their underlings have come up with a new marketing campaign. I don't know if you saw it. It's called All for the Love of Chicago. The chief marketing officer for Choose Chicago, pushing the Chicago tourism, want to get some positivity out there in the public domain to counteract the unfortunate and, of course, unfounded negativity, because everything's fine. There's the president is manufacturing a crisis, as we've heard from our political leadership. Everything's fine. There's no problem here. A lot of the residents in some of the neighborhoods that are beset by violence say differently, but the political leadership says there's nothing to see here other than the most beautiful city in the Western world. So for the love of Chicago, you want to take that down. Then you go to the Instagram, and what you do is you direct message videos on why you love the city that may be featured in the All for the Love of Chicago campaign that Choose Chicago is running to try to encourage people to not believe the stories emanating from the city about lawlessness, violence, but rather to believe the rhetoric of a Jelly Belly or a BLM Brandon. All for the love of Chicago. What would your video say? And by the way, as is mentioned all the time by me and many others who are exasperated by what the political leadership of this city and state have done to this city and state, it's not because we don't like Chicago, it's because we do, that we speak out. Because it is a great city, could be, because it does have a lot that's worth protecting and accentuating and celebrating. Maybe not the Bears. And it won't have the Bears for very much longer either, now will it? Isn't that a sign of the times that nobody should pay attention to? So mindless happy talk is the order of the day because it's strictly a marketing problem here. Let's not discuss no cash bail. We've got a lot of data now that has been the law of the land for a couple of years. Let's not discuss that. Let's just tell each other those beautiful lies sitting under the chestnut tree. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Corey in Woodlawn.
Hey, thanks for taking the call, Dan. I have to disagree with Trump on this. They are stupid people. It's like talking to a mirror when you interact with them. I started a block club on the south side when I first got into the Woodlawn neighborhood. I cleaned the block every single day. I shut down bad buildings. I worked with council downtown to make sure that bad buildings were removed from bad landlords into the hands of decent landlords. And the University of Chicago gave me an award in 2012 for my activity. But trying to mimic that actions on other blocks and interacting with those individuals on that block, you get to see that these people are absolutely morons because they don't want to go or they don't want to do what it takes to clean up these neighborhoods at all.
And they be specific. I mean, I assume it's a combination, but be specific who you're referencing.
It's the residents. It's
yeah.
I mean, it's something I have to talk to you about online. But when you interact with them, you say, "Oh," and it's not just the residents. It's also a lot of the individuals that work for government. I think they're so happy with fleecing the taxpayers that they don't really care about doing the work.
Thanks for the call, Corey. Yeah, cut me in or cut it out. As long as I'm in on the grift, then everything's hunky dory. And also I don't. I think that's part of it. There's no question that's part of it. The other part of it is there's just such low expectations. People have such low expectations for themselves, for the city. This is why you get it's just big city living. Whatever grotesque occurrence is the discussion of the day, it's just big city living. You come to accept it. I mean, it's sort of like we talk about the soft bigotry of low expectations when it comes to K through 12 education. And particularly in majority minority school districts like, I don't know, Chicago public schools, the soft bigotry of low expectations. It's sort of that same attitude about the city writ large with respect to just about everything. Bill, Northwest Side.
Yeah, Dan, don't you find it interesting that we're just finding out about this incident in Charlotte? It actually happened on August 22nd, and we're just hearing about it yesterday. And I was just wondering, I wanted your opinion on this. What if the situation was reversed? What if the young girl that got stabbed and killed happened to be a young black woman, and the perpetrator happened to be a white male? I wonder how soon we would have heard about it, and how we'd be hear about it blaring all over the you-know-what media 24/7. I was just wondering. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks for the call, Bill. Well, to that point, first of all, I mean, we mentioned it last week, so there was some reporting on it. But what the D.C. press corps attempted to do, which comes as no surprise to anybody who's watched their conduct for any modest amount of time. What they try to do is just ignore it. So, for example, somebody went and did a search of two names at the New York Times. The search of Daniel Penny returned hundreds of matches. The search of Irina Zarutska returned none. No matches. This was yesterday. So they tried to bury it for as long as they could by not reporting on it. That's the not often talked about enough way that the press corps exhibits its bias, is the things they don't report in addition to how they report the things they do report. But when that essentially surveillance video of what happened on that train in Charlotte came out over the weekend, now we can't ignore it anymore. So now you see the pivot. It was, we're not going to report on it. Okay, now we have to report on it. And number one, we're going to celebrate media outlets that are not posting the video, even though it's past post at this point, like the mayor of Charlotte did. Complaining about media outlets. Oh, it's, in the interest of propriety, please don't show the video. Right. We don't want to see anything. We want to listen to the beautiful lies. We don't want to be jarred into the reality, into confronting the reality of what these big cities have become and under who they have become what they've become. God forbid anybody connect any dots. The Axio and then the reporting to minimize it and also characterize the attention it's getting as emblematic of MAGA racism because, as Bill just mentioned, the assailant black and the victim white. And this is what you got from that human cue ball over on CNN, Brian Stelter.
Really, over the weekend, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, other Trump-aligned figures succeeded in making this senseless death a symbol of big city crime. We heard President Trump asked about it yesterday when he was heading home from New York City. He didn't seem to know much about it. He said he would get briefed, and then today, Trump did know all about it. That's exactly what has happened here. This story has trickled up from local news to social media and now to the president's attention. And it's being used, as you said, Brianna, as a political symbol, with MAGA media calling for more forceful punishments and more incarceration. I have to say, some of the replies to Musk, some of the comments around this story are baldly racist, stoking fear of African Americans because this man attacked a white woman. The open racism on sites like X today, it's eye-popping. But there are also legitimate questions about this so-called career criminal, someone who had been a repeat offender. And those questions, I hope they're not lost amid all of the cesspool kind of comments on social media.
Yeah. Golly gee, we hope we don't lose the key takeaways here because of the racism coming from MAGA world on X. Yeah, that's the sort of thing you're getting. The concern there. Yeah, there are some legitimate issues. Thank you, Brian Stelter. What a grand concession. You mean that the guy had 13 cases in Mecklenburg County? That he did a 6-year stint, repeat violent offender, preventable crimes. If you deal with repeat violent offenders the way that exemplifies a concern about the safety of your constituents. I mean, how many times in how many cases have we discussed this very issue in Chicago? They're countless. Axios reporting. The video is easily shared or leaked, talking about the video of the incident. The video is easily shared or leaked and can instantly pollinate across social media, a visual counterpoint to statistics showing crime decreases. It's mostly peaceful in Charlotte. What's the problem? It's mostly peaceful in Chicago. Crime's down, 30-year lows. And the, I mean, as some people commenting on X, it's not just racism, much to the chagrin of Brian Stelter. I thought this was trenchant. The crime wouldn't be so bad if we just go back to not knowing it happened. Unless the media decides it's important to them. Yeah, that's basically their attitude. Blaming people who post videos about what happened to, again, bring the reality home. It goes back to the example I always reference, since it's mine. The Scream ad that I did in the 2022 gubernatorial race, the woman getting attacked in broad daylight in Lakeview and caught on a ring camera screaming, blood-curdling screams as she's rightly afraid for her life. And what was the reaction from the Chicago Press Corps? Did you have permission? Did you talk to the woman? Don't you think this is over that? And then once the residents, going back to what Corey from Woodland said, once the residents of the left who don't want to know the truth, who just want to chalk everything up to big city living, who can, easily gloss over data points and statistics and print stories about violence and public menaces. Once they called in and said that has to come down. What about the children? Yeah, what about the children? In fact, What about the children living in a society like we have constructed for ourselves? What about them, as a matter of fact? But that's not how anybody here saw it. Shut it down. We don't want to see it. We don't want to have to confront what we have allowed to beset the city. And that's what you see happening in Charlotte now. And to the extent that it's a black and white thing, a black assailant and a white victim, if you take judicial notice of that fact, then you're a racist. That's how it plays. Glenn in the Western Burbs.
Dan, do you remember when the discussion of the Safety Act was occurring that I think there were 2 counties in Illinois that said yes and the rest said no?
Yes. State's attorneys for 100 of the 102 counties in the state opposed it. The only 2 that supported it, Kim Fox and Eric Reinhardt from Lake County. Those are the 2. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, they were right. The majority was right, and the leadership ignored it.
Thanks for the call, Glenn. Don't pay any attention to any of that. Just go upload your All for the Love of Chicago video to that Instagram page so that we can all celebrate one another and not have to confront any of this ugliness. Coming up at 5:38, the Trump Epstein birthday letter revealed. What's its import and impact? 5:38. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 52 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. Possible pathways to keep tariffs in place are being looked at by the White House.
President Trump's administration has asked the Supreme Court to quickly review an appeals court ruling that a 1970s national security law does not grant the president the power to set tariffs. Trump allies say they are confident that the Supreme Court will provide a more favorable interpretation of the executive's authority. However, if the justices let an appellate ruling stand, Trump has got a series of options for pursuing tariffs through laws delegating the constitutional power to the president to levy tariffs. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Self-described tax experts of social media are costing taxpayers millions in penalties.
According to an IRS news release, the agency has reported more than $160 million in penalties since 2022. The IRS is now warning of 2 schemes in particular that have been circulating recently, which promote the misuse of the fuel tax credit, as well as the sick and family leave credit. Taxpayers who subscribe to social media tips are encouraged to amend their tax returns immediately, respond to IRS letters, and hire reputable tax professionals. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com. Kyle started Blindster in 2010 to make quality, custom-made blinds affordable to everyone. Traditional window covering retailers are expensive. Blindster's prices are low, and their blinds are guaranteed to fit. Blindster.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but
Scott Jennings sees more sore losing from the left.
This is Tim Walz, Democrat vice presidential candidate last year.
The last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
I mean, he's literally sitting there saying, I wake up in the morning hoping to find news that the President of the United States had died.
The Scott Jennings Show. Weekdays at 1, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer.
Can you read this email for me?
Of course. Jeez, I wish they could do something for your eyesight.
Me too. But you heard what they said. There's nothing we can do.
When vision loss can't be corrected with glasses or surgery, and hope seems lost, turn to Spectrios Institute for Low Vision. Spectrios doctors specialize in the treatment of vision loss related to eye diseases, such as macular degeneration, glaucoma, and diabetic retinopathy. There is hope, supported by science with personalized rehabilitation plans, occupational therapies, and access technology at Spectrios. Talk to a patient service manager. They'll walk you through the program. Spectrios takes BCBS and Medicare insurance. They also have grants for qualifying patients and offer a Seeing is Believing children's outreach program. Go to spectrios.org, located in Wheaton in a building that says it all, the House of Hope. That's SPECTRIOS.org. Spectrios Institute, the head, heart, and eyes approach to better vision. Remember to keep Spectrios Institute, a 501c, in your estate or legacy planning.
Are you prepared for the Illinois estate tax? If your estate is worth over $4 million, your heirs could face a tax bill of up to 16% when you pass. Financial advisor Scott Tucker and the team at Scott Tucker Solutions can show you ways to potentially reduce or even eliminate that burden. One strategy is to start gifting assets during your lifetime to lower the taxable value of your estate. Another option is setting up irrevocable trusts, which can shield wealth from estate taxes. Charitable donations and life insurance policies can also be smart tools to offset tax liabilities. Call Scott Tucker and the Scott Tucker Solutions team now, 847-474-3888, or go to 560retirement.com. That's 847-474-3888, or go to 560retirement.com. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Protect your liver and give it the support it deserves with Active Liver from New Nordic. Find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or at newnordicusa.com.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be partly sunny and pleasant with a high of 77. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 57. Tomorrow will bring times of clouds and sun, reaching a high of 81. Thursday looks mostly sunny and warm with a high of 82. Friday will be very warm with sunshine mixing with some clouds, reaching a high of 86. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and over the weekend, Tom Massey from Kentucky, Ro Khanna from California, they've teamed up in pursuit of all of the Epstein files and the release of said. You remember they had a little press conference last week, and it included Marjorie Taylor Greene suggesting that any of the Epstein victims who wanted to name names, if they gave her the names, she would read those names on the House floor, bring more attention to this. We also had Speaker Johnson, Mike Johnson, say over the weekend that Trump was an FBI informant.
He's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have suffered these unspeakable harms. It's detestable to him. He and I have spoken about this as recently as 24 hours ago.
Yeah, but I mean, he has since clarified. He is reiterating what the victim's attorney said. So informant, meaning he provided information voluntarily. It's not like he was an FBI asset. So a little bit of an imprecision with words there by Speaker Johnson. But it is relevant, actually, since he brought it up, to remind people what Brad Edwards, who represented some 6 or 7 dozen Epstein victims, what he said about Trump. And this dates back, almost 2 decades to 2009 when Brad Edwards, I suppose, was first on the job here. This is what he said a couple of years ago about what Trump said and did for him way back when.
Nothing at all. The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, "Let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know," and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
And that was in 2009?
That was in 2009. So,
do you know if there's any truth to James Patterson's claims that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago?
I've definitely heard that.
But anyway, Brad Edwards, the plaintiff's attorney representing, as I said, 6 or 7 dozen of the Epstein victims, essentially testifies in the public square to Trump constructively engaging him and providing information that was useful, that checked out. So it got a little silly over the weekend because it was clear that Mike Johnson sort of misspoke in using that terminology. Thomas Massey was on This Week talking about it.
When we asked the survivors at our event, did they support the legislation that Ro Khanna and I have introduced, they all said yes. Now, I don't know if the speaker misspoke when he said that Donald Trump was an informant. The lawyers for the victims said that Donald Trump had been helpful in 2009 in their case by giving them information. But being an informant implies some formal connection and ongoing relationship with the FBI. I don't know what that's all about. I think the speaker needs to clarify that.
And he did clarify it. And so now we can, get back to the substance of the matter. He was helpful. He provided information, and again, a little bit of imprecision from Speaker Johnson. But just reminding us of what Trump did and said, providing this information back 16 years ago, it just further adds to the confusion as to the approach that he's taking now. And you did have to have Mike Johnson sort of explain that he's not calling what the victims had to say in terms of what happened to them. He's not saying that's a hoax. It's the politicization of it and the suggestion that there's some cover-up going on to protect Trump. That's what I would presume as well, but herein lies the problem of Trump's lack of precision when he talks about this too, as he did again over the weekend. The confused and badly failing Democrat Party did nothing about Jeffrey Epstein while he was alive except befriend him, socialize with him, travel to his island, and take his money. They know everything there was to know about Epstein. They knew everything there was to know about Epstein, but now, years after his death, they, out of nowhere, are seeming to show such love and heartfelt concern for his victims. Does anybody really believe that? Where were they during the very public trials and for all those years before his death? The answer is nowhere to be found. The now dying Epstein case, after DOJ gave thousands of pages of documents in full compliance with the very comprehensive and exacting subpoena from Congress, the now dying Epstein case was only brought back to life by the radical left Democrats because they are doing so poorly with the lowest poll numbers in the history of the party, while the Republicans are doing so well. The Dems don't care about the victims, as proven by the fact that they never did before. This is just merely another Democrat hoax, just like Russia, and all the others, to deflect and distract from the great success of a Republican president. So that in terms of the hoax, right? I get that. But it's just so easy. It's just been the whole thing has been just so easy to deal with. Disclose out, just rhetorically, we will disclose everything that we can per, the courts, and I stand with the victims. That's it, and put a bow on it. But because there's been this appearance of trying to sort of sweep this away, you've created, talk about manufacturing a crisis, you've created skepticism where understanding was sought. And so now the House Oversight Committee just got a bunch of new documents yesterday, including the birthday book compiled by Ghislaine Maxwell for Epstein's 50th birthday, the last will and testament of Epstein, immediately preceding August 8th of 2019, the September 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida and Epstein. I mean, it's a public document. It should have been. It takes this long to get that produced. Entries from Epstein's address contact books from January 1, 1990 through August 10, 2019, and information about Epstein's known bank accounts. Committee staff will review these documents and then make them public in the near future, is what House Oversight Committee Chairman Jim Comer, a Republican, obviously, had to say about it. I mean, again, so the address book and the the whole point here still is, I want to hear from Pam Bondi. I want Pam Bondi to stand and deliver on this topic and explain to people what she did and or is continuing to do, and why, despite some 200 civil settlements, she is unable at this juncture to bring charges against anybody else who was clearly, other people that were clearly involved. This couldn't have all been Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, is the point here. Not to mention what the victims say. And the approach here, too, is so strange because not only what Brad Edwards, the victim's attorney, said, but NBC News interviewed a bunch of the victims that were at that press conference last week and put the Trump question to them. And this is how that went.
I do have to ask, and I know, and it's just something that I think we're compelled to at this moment, with the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon. Did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No. Right. So, again, all of the black helicopter talk from the Ro Khannas of the world, it gets air because you got victims saying there's no there. You have the victim's attorney, one of the more prominent ones, saying Trump was helpful way back when, and he's the only one who was, or didn't have to subpoena him. He, proactively provided information that checked out. The guy threw Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. I mean, there's no indication here, so it's a head scratcher. And now we get this. The circus continues, and the circus yesterday, I mentioned the Epstein estate making the birthday book available to the public, and so now you get a copy of this letter that Trump allegedly sent Epstein for his 50th birthday, with the silhouette of a woman and this sort of fictional conversation between Donald and Jeffrey, and this is the basis of a suit he filed against Rupert Murdoch and the Wall Street Journal when it was first published several weeks back. Well, now a copy has been provided that's from the book itself. Doesn't necessarily validate it, but and you have the Wall Street Journal going painstakingly over it to doing handwriting comparisons in terms of the signature on it, the sorts of doodles that Trump has previously drawn that are in the public domain, and how they compare or don't compare to the doodle on the birthday letter, the language he uses, his enigma is a word that he's used before, and other such words that have been pulled from this. And this all could have been avoided if it would have been handled differently, not just from the outset, but from the reset. The reset when Trump said, Bondi is going to go to court. She is going to try to unseal the grand jury, get the grand jury transcripts unsealed, and we're going to comply after she issued that missive saying no further action. There's nothing more that we have to disclose on this. We're moving on. And he tried to move on because she sent the memo saying we're moving on, and that didn't work. There was that reset period. Even if you would have retrenched at that point, so much of this could have been avoided. And I know there's a theory out there that this doesn't matter, and the only people who care about this story are, Democrats trying to boogeyman Trump from yet another angle. But that's not true. That's not true. And let this be a teachable moment, too, for MAGA world. Let's not forget that all of not all of, but the expectations that were heightened by the statements made by the principals who are now in positions of authority. Bondi, Patel, Bongino, and the president himself. They said there was a there in all sorts of colorful rhetoric. Get your big boy pants on, House Republicans, and go get the Epstein files, Kash Patel. So you create expectations, then you have to deal with the expectations you've created, and they haven't been dealt with very well. They're doing what the left does, taking a position rather than providing an explanation, taking a position rather than making a case. And because of the nature of this and the palace intrigue surrounding it, it demands making a case for the approach taken, for the effort put forward. And when you don't, it becomes a sideshow because all of these jackals on the left, with the help of their comm shop, the DC Press Corps, now they won't let it go. They dutifully ignored it. Trump is right. Now they won't let it go. And so we're going to pour over whether or not the 50th birthday letter that Trump allegedly sent Epstein is authentic or not, as if it matters. It doesn't. It's not even germane. Even if it was authentic, that's proof of what? Nothing. You've heard from the victims. You've heard from the victim's attorney. They had, access to, or I'm sure, and conversations about whether or not they could implicate Trump in all of this Epstein business when they were in power, right? I mean, it's obvious that if they had something, they would have used it. They threw everything plus the kitchen sink at him, inventing charges and novel interpretations of the law. The whole thing, the whole handling of this since Trump's reelection and inauguration, it's just been such a massive self-own. It's frustrating.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
At AlmostFreeTeeth.com, they're dedicated to making smiles great again. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get a beautiful dental implant-supported smile. Check if you qualify right now at AlmostFreeTeeth.com.
Did you know that AM 560 Radio has a full-service digital marketing division called Salem Surround? If you're a business decision maker, listen up. AM 560 listeners are everywhere your potential audience is. So are our incredible targeting capabilities. We localize digital marketing and put it within reach of every business, small and large, in Chicagoland and beyond. Salem Surround offers AI-powered marketing solutions that reach your ideal audience. Whether or not you tap into the proven live, local, and emotional connection that AM 560 Radio brings, Salem Surround offers a total marketing solution to our partners, all-in-one digital solutions that provide targeted local digital and social media ads, Google AdWords management, website services, video strategy, search optimization, and even a management dashboard to offer you total campaign updates and transparency. Your Salem Surround representative is located right here in Chicago. Experience the Salem Surround digital revolution today. Call 847-472-8951. That's 847-472-8951.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. DOGE has done a lot for American taxpayers. One of its chief benefits has been highlighting the government fraud and corruption eating up Americans' tax money. Investigators at the Senate DOGE caucus are reporting examples of abuse that should light taxpayers' hair on fire. At the Department of Agriculture, a supposed anti-fraud investigator allegedly used her position to steal $36 million in federal SNAP benefits intended for the needy. The report says thousands of government workers are collecting paychecks and taking unemployment benefits at the same time. Investigators reported that yet others made up fake children's names to pocket illegal survivor benefits using the names of actual dead adults. Perhaps it's no wonder the government employee unions resist when DOJ seeks agency information. But American taxpayers deserve honest, accountable government. I'm Carol Platt-Liebau.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Bob Chivato, owner of Go Exceed and a customer of Signature Bank. By leveraging AI and machine learning, we provide data management solutions for corporations to save time and money managing their cellular devices. While we rely on machines to help us run our business, we believe personal relationships are essential. This is why we chose Signature Bank. Having a banking partner who understands our background, our business, and our priorities is fundamental to our success. Any bank can provide basic services, but having a bank that you can trust, one that looks out for you and treats your business like its own, that's irreplaceable.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature Bank can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature Bank at 773-467-5600 or visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage. AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 6:06, Operation Midway Blitz. Bears could have used a little bit of that in the second half against Jay from Nazareth. 6:06, Operation Midway Blitz. And at 6:36, we're going to talk to Joe Abraham, the father of Katie Abraham. 6 a.m., AM 560 WIND.
A new federal illegal immigration crackdown in another city. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. It's being launched in Chicago and across Illinois, called Operation Midway Blitz, which the Department of Homeland Security says is in honor of Katie Abraham, a woman killed in January in a drunk driving hit-and-run crash blamed on a man here illegally who's now charged. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons just told Fox.
We're out there going getting these criminal illegal aliens that the state and local officials don't want to deal with, or they don't have the heart to deal with. We have to take these threats out of the streets so young people like Katie will be around to have a great and wonderful life.
Both Illinois' governor and Chicago's mayor, who are Democrats, have spoken out against increased immigration enforcement as unwanted and unnecessary. The mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, is calling a Supreme Court ruling allowing ICE to resume an immigration crackdown in Southern California dangerous and un-American.
A federal judge had blocked the raids in July, siding with advocacy groups that argued officials were stopping suspected illegal immigrants without a valid reason. But Justice Brett Kavanaugh, one of the 6 who sided with the Trump administration, argues that ICE's tactics were fair, writing in his concurrence, quote, under this court's precedents, not to mention common sense, those circumstances taken together can constitute at least reasonable suspicion of illegal presence in the United States.
That's Fox's Todd Pyro. Israel has ordered a new evacuation in Gaza as it ramps up the war against Hamas.
Previous warnings were for people in areas where there were about to be concentrated operations or airstrikes. This is for all of Gaza City, seen by Israel as the last Hamas stronghold. Dozens of high-rise buildings have already been destroyed, alleged to be used by Hamas for military infrastructure and surveillance. Civilians living in them are now out on the streets. The United Nations says a lot of families can't afford to leave and go south, and refugee sites are overcrowded for those who do.
Fox's Chris Foster. In Russia's war in Ukraine, another deadly attack. A bombing in the village in the east killed at least 21 Ukrainians. America's listening to Fox News.
WIND, Chicago.
Good morning. It's 53 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. Chicago Mayor Johnson says that sending the National Guard to his city is the wrong solution to a real problem.
Johnson made the comments in a new opinion piece for the New York Times, saying that the lowering of crime in the city doesn't require an occupation. He went on to say that if Trump listened to city leaders, he would recognize that Chicago just experienced record-low homicide numbers. Trump said Sunday he wasn't going to war with Chicago, saying he was going to clean up American cities. I'm Mark Mayfield.
The Department of Homeland Security is launching an immigration crackdown this week in Chicago and across the state. The DHS announced yesterday on social media the launch of Operation Midway Blitz in honor of Katie Abraham. Police say Abraham died in Urbana when a drunk driver who was an illegal alien slammed an SUV into the vehicle she and her friends were riding in. Officials say the ICE operation will target the criminal illegals who flock to Chicago and Illinois because they know Governor Pritzker and his sanctuary policies would protect them and allow them to roam on American streets. A 2-year-old is dead following an accidental shooting in the Chatham neighborhood. Police said the incident happened yesterday in the 300 block of East 87th Street when the child suffered an accidental self-inflicted gunshot wound to the face. He died at the hospital. The victim's been identified as Caden Johnson. Police are speaking with a person of interest. News is a service of Quick Delivery Service. Make Quick Delivery Service your personal ground crew. Anytime, anywhere, any place. When you need to move your shipment or freight, Quick Delivery will get it there. Get a quote in advance and eliminate any surprises at quickdelivery.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560. The Answer.
Hugh Hewitt warns that China is flexing.
Xi Jinping has capped a week of frenetic diplomacy by presiding over one of China's biggest military parades, projecting his nation's growing power in a show of solidarity with fellow strongman Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. Everyone's got to pay attention to what China is doing and what China is saying. And it's very ominous.
The Hugh Hewitt Show. Afternoons at 2, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Your home equity could vanish almost overnight, stolen by scammers who forge a deed and transfer it out of your name. The FBI calls it house stealing, and the worst part is you may not know it until it's too late. Find out if you're already a victim now at HomeTitleLock.com. Use promo code RADIO for a 30-day free trial, a title scan, and access to a title specialist, a $250 value. Go to HomeTitleLock.com now. Promo code RADIO.
You ever wonder why Verizon charges twice as much as Pure Talk for the same basic service? Think it might have something to do with the fact that Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion. That's billion with a B. Yeah, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. That's why they can offer unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Save an additional 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say the words Micro. That's pound 250. Micro.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at TruePowerGenerator.com. That's TruePowerGenerator.com. And right now, AM 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty with their Generac. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
Is cremation an option you're considering for you or your loved one? At Catholic cemeteries, we offer sacred, permanent places of rest where loved ones can be remembered, prayed for, and visited for generations. Too often, cremated remains are brought home, only to end up in closets, basements, or forgotten on shelves. Memorialization is forever. Honor their life. Preserve your legacy. Visit us today at CatholicCemeteryChicago.org to schedule a free consultation or call 708-236-5490.
From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. On the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, well, we've already got an issue. 2 left lanes are blocked. That's going to be between Willow and Skokie. IDOTS is blocking the center lane near Lake. There's reports of a big old pothole in the center lane with cars on the shoulder. And it's a pretty big old pothole, so you might want to watch out. 2 left lanes are blocked about 37 minutes right now. So about 13 minutes the opposite direction, so keep your eyes on the road. Moving on the Kennedy, inbound from Montrose to the Bird Interchange, 10 minutes. Outbound, about 9 minutes. Traffic is a service of the daily podcast of Chicago's Morning Answer and the Sean Thompson Show. Hear both shows with limited commercials when you subscribe for free to the daily podcast at 560theanswer.com/podcast. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now I check your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be partly sunny and pleasant with a high of 77. Expect partly cloudy skies tonight with a low of 57. Tomorrow will bring a mix of clouds and sun, reaching a high of 81. Thursday looks mostly sunny and warm with a high of 82. Friday will be very warm with a mix of sun and clouds, reaching a high of 86. I'm meteorologist Jason Catarina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Trump may have been trolling Pritzker and Brandon Johnson over deploying the National Guard to Chicago, but he certainly wasn't when it comes to immigration enforcement. Homeland Security announcing yesterday the launching of Operation Midway Blitz in honor of Katie Abraham, one of two young women that was killed by a person in this country illegally in a hit-and-run crash in Urbana when she and her friend, Chloe Polzin, and three other girls were visiting their friends in, friends at U of I. We'll talk to Joe Abraham again at the bottom of the hour, her father. And in the statement announcing this operation, the Department of Homeland Security put it right between Governor Jelly Belly's eyes, which is where it should go. For years, Governor Pritzker and his fellow sanctuary politicians released Tren de Aragua gangbangers, rapists, kidnappers, and drug traffickers on Chicago's streets, putting American lives at risk and making Chicago a magnet for criminals. President Trump and Secretary Noem have a clear message. No city is a safe haven for criminal illegal aliens. If you come to our country illegally and break our laws, we will hunt you down, arrest you, deport you, and you will never return. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line. So federal resources being deployed here to remove at least some of the criminal element. Oh, and DHS provided some receipts, too. Homeland Security. When they say Pritzker and his fellow sanctuary politicians have released gangbangers, rapists, kidnappers, drug traffickers, that's not just a throwaway sentence without any substantiation. Gabriel Galvez, a 47-year-old criminal alien from Mexico with convictions for battery, aggravated assault, DUI, trespassing, criminal damage to property, public indecency, violation of order of protection, and multiple assaults. He's been identified as a Latin King gangbanger. ICE lodged arrest detainers 12 separate times. 12. Each time, Cook County Jail did not honor the detainer and released him. Javier Carmelo Casillas Gomez, 46-year-old criminal alien from Mexico with convictions for procuring prostitution, domestic violence and assault, drug possession, and active warrant for drug manufacturing. ICE lodged an arrest detainer with Cook County Jail. Yeah. You know how that went. Fill in the rest of the story, won't you? Victor Manuel Gomez Adelano, 45-year-old criminal illegal alien from Mexico with prior deportations and convictions for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon. You know how we're so committed to getting guns off the streets, illegal guns off the streets. So it's just an Indiana problem. We should station the National Guard at the Illinois-Indiana border to stop all those illegal guns from getting here and those gun traffickers. Illegal alien from Mexico, aggravated unlawful use of a weapon charges. ICE lodged an arrest detainer with Illinois Department of Corrections. He was released, despite the ICE arrest detainer. Ricardo Salos Muro, 41-year-old criminal illegal alien from Mexico with convictions for burglary and drug possession. Released multiple times despite ICE detainers lodged by ICE in Chicago. Danny Hernandez Colina, 27-year-old criminal illegal alien from Venezuela and Tren de Aragua gangbanger with repeat arrests for burglary and shoplifting. Immigration judge issued an order of removal for him in 2024. Gosh, sounds like he got due process. But he was released after Cook County Jail failed to honor an ICE detainer. Are you sensing a pattern yet? Do actual human beings and cases of repeat offenders in this country illegally and preying on Chicagoans, including, in some cases, as I mentioned all the time, other migrants who are otherwise law-abiding, other than breaking the law to be here, but they're not violent predators. They're getting victimized too. My people, says Pritzker. Well, these are his people. Who are Pritzker's people? Right here. Carlos Johendi Gonzalez Montero is one of Pritzker's people. A 36-year-old criminal alien from Venezuela, Trinidad gangbanger with charges for reckless conduct, aggravated assault with a weapon and armed violence, released after Cook County Jail ignored ICE detainers. Oscar Vences, a 30-year-old criminal illegal alien from Mexico and a member of the 2-6 gang with convictions for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon and domestic battery. Cook County did not honor the ICE detainer, released him because, you know, the politicians in Illinois and Chicago are very concerned. Domestic violence is a big issue. We need to protect women. I mean, except if the assailant is here illegally, then we need to protect him. I could go on. In point of fact, I will. 39-year-old criminal illegal alien from Venezuela with convictions for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon and aggravated assault. He's considered armed and dangerous after Cook County Jail failed to honor a detainer. 20-year-old criminal illegal alien from Mexico with convictions for illegal reentry, drug possession, multiple DUIs, released despite ICE detainer. 34-year-old criminal illegal alien from Venezuela and TDA gangbanger with a criminal history of aggravated unlawful use of weapons, sexual assault, domestic battery, and kidnapping. Released multiple times despite an ICE detainer. 6-year-old criminal illegal alien from Iraq with convictions for felonious assault, assault with a deadly weapon, and murder/intent to kill. Order for removal by an immigration judge in 1997. But was repeatedly released from Illinois jails despite ICE detainers. There's a little cross-section of Pritzker's people, Brandon Johnson's people. Oh, and meanwhile, Fox reporting on this yesterday. The HHS, Office of Refugee Resettlement, Health and Human Services, they put together a task force to locate all of those unaccompanied minors that the Biden administration lost. What was the number? Some 80,000 unaccompanied minors that disappeared into this country. Well, this task force, the Trump administration created to actually find these kids who we knew, Tom Homan talked about it relentlessly, we knew were being exploited. But that's not of particular interest to the Biden administration or to the left in general, these open borders politicians and the sanctuary sycophants who support them. Well, 22,638 of those who disappeared into this country, not were disappeared, unless you want to consider the Biden administration the disappearers. Disappearing people? The Biden administration disappeared people. 80,000 kids. And what happened to them? Pretty grisly stuff. And this is just among the 22,638 who have been found by this administration.
We found kids in very deplorable conditions, very dirty conditions. We found children who have been raped.
We got exclusive access to the team operating from what they call the War Room in Washington, D.C. Working under the Department of Health and Human Services, the team is made up of volunteers from agencies like the FBI and Homeland Security investigations. The team is entirely data-driven. They're focused on analyzing records and addresses to track down where these minors ended up. More than 22,000 unaccompanied children have been found so far under this Trump administration. 27 of the minors were found dead, either murdered or by suicide, car accidents, or drug overdoses. And more than 400 sponsors have been arrested.
We're talking about debt bondage, where children are being made to work off debt, trafficking debt. We're talking about children that were brought into situations and then treated like sexual slaves.
In early 2021, record number of children became crossing the border. According to HHS, between 2021 to 2024, more than 470,000 unaccompanied children crossed into the United States. Records show that many of these children were released to sponsors under very lax vetting policies.
What do you think people would be surprised of when it comes to the lack of screening?
Well, under the last administration, there was a severe lack of screening. There was no DNA testing to see if there was a familial connection. Children were released to people that said they were their parents who were not. And in many cases, the data is horrible. What the Biden administration was taking in and actually putting into our computer systems was not the right information. So now we have to draw that all back in and deeply investigate into where some of these children went.
That is John Fabricatori, who is with the HHS Office of Refugee Resettlement. 400 arrested, 27 dead kids. Does that sound like a humane policy to you? There were whistleblowers on this, too, in terms of not doing the DNA testing that is required by law and properly vetting these sponsors. Nobody cared. Just get them in. Whatever happens, happens. That was the approach. And now the Trump administration is trying to claw them back and find these kids and hold their exploiters accountable under the law. And he's the monster? He's the authoritarian? He's the one who's not making it safe for people in this country? So the Office of Refugee Resettlement and ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, they're the bad guys? Is that right? That's what I understand from the political leadership in this city and state. "27 dead kids, 400 arrested." And by the way, that story went on. So what wasn't being done under Biden is now being done under Trump in terms of vetting sponsors. Trying to reunite unaccompanied children sent to this country with their families in their home countries. Reuniting families. That's inhumane? Or having them fend for themselves on the streets of America with all of the unsavory figures involved in the ghastly human trafficking business. Lecture me some more on your empathy and compassion. Wave that "no person is illegal" sign in my face one more time, won't you? I hope people take that story down, and I'll post it, and distribute it widely, and ask some of the same questions within your circles of influence that I'm asking. Rhetorically, obviously, because the answers are so frickin' obvious. Joe Abraham, who we'll speak with in a moment, on the rhetoric that I'm referencing.
And I know they like to use certain terms like disappeared and taken, snatched. But let me tell you, Katie was disappeared, taken, snatched, received no due process at all. And the difference here is Katie was disappeared from us forever. We will never see my little girl again. When you talk about due process, I wish she was in another country or in some detention center I can go see her, but she's not, and I'll never see her again.
And on living with Katie's death memory?
It's so gut-wrenching every day. And I wish I could explain it, but it's as if just this large piece of you is gone. It'll never be back. And you've just got to move forward with it. And, you know, we have other kids and we're trying to, like, you know, stiff upper lip, but it is the most devastating thing. And no one should have to do and go through what we're going through right now. And it could have been avoided. Katie was killed by someone who really could have been vetted and not been in this country, and she would be here with us today.
Preventable crimes. And then we all sit and watch as we're lectured by J.B. Pritzker about who his people are, and you have to come through him. And these are the big repositories of empathy, the purveyors of human dignity, they tell us. Do you hear yourself?
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
I think it's coming from over here.
No, I think I hear it over there.
Hold on. Here it is.
That's the Perry Sleeper, one of Penny Mustard's most popular sleeper sofas.
Yeah, and I think I know who's sleeping on it. Come on, Ben. Wake up.
Huh? What month is it?
You mean, what time is it?
No, what month? I'm hibernating.
You can't hibernate.
Well, I couldn't until I found the Perry Sleeper. Sure, it's classy and comfy as a sofa, but this pull-out sleeper is unbelievable.
5 extra inches of mattress.
And no painful bar in the middle of my back.
It just might be the perfect sleeper sofa.
Ugh, I'm going back to sleep. I set an alarm.
For what time?
April.
The Perry Sleeper, American-made with your choice of fabric or leather, and no metal bar digging into your back. Starting at $44.99 at Penny Mustard.
7 Chicagoland showrooms.
PennyMustard.com.
Better versions of what people want.
Penny Mustard Furnishings.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
President Trump has made some pretty amazing claims since he's taken his seat as president. He's delivering on what he promised. On Inauguration Day, Trump's very first declaration was,
"The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish."
Consider this. Since the election, gold has shot up hundreds of dollars per ounce, shattering all-time record highs. Fox Valley Coins does not pretend to know the future, but they do know that if you're buying or selling gold or silver, they are the place to do it. These are some of the top reasons people choose a dealer. You want a national dealer with a local presence you can deal with face-to-face. You want a large selection, the best prices, and great service. You want to walk in with cash and walk out with the best product. You want to deal with legacy dealers with integrity. Whether buying or selling, or just one valuation, Fox Valley Coins is your answer for choosing a dealer. Visit Fox Valley Coins, 1 light north of I-88 on Route 59 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. FoxValleyCoins.com. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
You know what really keeps me up at night? It's the criminals feel more and more bold. They have no fear of any consequences because there are none. So I did what anyone with a family should do. I called Goldilocks. They're not just some cookie-cutter security company. Goldilocks has been protecting Chicagoland homes and businesses for 4 decades, 40 years. And they actually listen. Their technician comes out to the house. He takes a look at what you need to make your house a smart home with a security system you can monitor from anywhere. It's built specifically for me and my family. Motion sensors, smart locks, cameras, monitoring, all customized. I don't trust anybody in Illinois to protect my family. I do it, and I did it by calling Goldilocks. I trust Goldilocks to keep my house, my property, and my family safe. Tell them Sean Thompson sent you, and Goldilocks will include 3 months free monitoring with any new installation. Call Goldilocks at 708-899-5600. That's 708-899-5600. Or visit them online at GoldilocksInc.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Nice to see that the 85 Bears were honored last night's game. Finally getting some recognition. What to say? Well, I mean, at least they didn't lose because of poor clock management. You have that going for you. I'm talking about the Bears, of course. So much hope and promise all dashed very quickly. Nice to see J.J. McCarthy, Nazareth Academy's very own, come back from throwing that pick six. That one played better than I thought he would, actually. Dave Swirsky is back. Remember Dave Swirsky? He's this dude on Instagram who dresses up like one of the super fans and composes these weekly ditties to memorialize whatever happened to the Bears on the preceding Sunday. And he had such high... he hasn't posted about last night's game yet. It takes a little while to compose a song. Give him a break. Probably wipe away the tears, too. But he did post a little song in advance of the season. Such anticipation. Hope springs eternal, right? It looks so good in the preseason.
Tell me, how have you been? It's time to bust this stash out once again. This off-season's been long, but I'm back with a song. Let's hope the team starts off real strong, but how good we'll be, we'll see. No matter what, I'll be making these songs. I'm back, Swirsky, year tree, singing I love Bears football. Just make it worth our time, win some games now, baby. I love Bears football. Swirsky's got the rhyme, so sing with me. Bear down.
So even if the Bears have another disappointing season, at least you have Swirsky's songs to look forward to. This guy's good. Coming up at 6:36, we'll have to return to the sober business of talking about immigration policy. As I mentioned, Joe Abraham, father of Katie Abraham, will join us 6:36. Katie Abraham again, the woman who is being acknowledged by Department of Homeland Security, Operation Midway Blitz, to remove people in this country who pose public safety threats and are here illegally. Operation Midway Blitz in honor of Katie Abraham's life and death. Joe Abraham, 6:36. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 53 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. Homeland Security is announcing an immigration operation in Chicago. In a post, DHS says Operation Midway Blitz will target criminal illegal aliens who have flocked to Chicago and Illinois. The operation follows days of President Trump's warnings that he wants to clean up the city's crime population. Mayor Johnson continues to insist that ramping things up any further by sending the National Guard to his city would be, quote, the wrong solution to a real problem. Meanwhile, the Louisiana National Guard is now assisting ICE agents with immigration operations across that state, and the U.S. Supreme Court has lifted a lower court's restraining order that barred using race and ethnicity as a tactic in stopping people during immigration enforcement operations in Los Angeles. A House task force on government transparency is holding a hearing today on UFOs. Lawmakers say Americans deserve maximum transparency on sightings, recoveries, and examinations of UAPs, including whether they pose a threat to public safety. Testimony is expected from Air Force and Navy veterans who've reported sightings, along with journalist George Knapp. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants with medical PPO insurance? It's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com, making smiles great again. A check of the road's coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Charlie Kirk wants to get tough on crime.
The Chicago political class is fighting a decrease in crime. This is a eye-opening experience, I hope, for a lot of Americans right now. What is the argument that they're giving you against bringing in federal troops? You know what? The Democrats have normalized the idea that our cities are dangerous dumps and nothing can be done about it.
The Charlie Kirk Show. Weekdays at 11, right before Scott Jennings at 1 on AM 560. The Answer.
Chicago businesses, you can't afford to be down. You don't have time to wait for IT support. You need one company that does IT well and does it right. Meet Access One, your local Chicagoland IT experts. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One is here for you. Chicago-owned, Chicago-run, and serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore. Access One is the trusted IT partner for law firms, clinics, tech startups, to manufacturers. Rated top 5% in customer satisfaction and a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business. Access One is your one vendor for everything tech. Let's talk. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneInc.com. That's accessoneInc.com. Tech made personal, locally.
Hey, this is Sean Thompson. You know, there's an old joke about Uncle Sam's tax short form. The first line says, "How much did you make?" The next line says, "Send it in." Sadly, that's not funny at all for honest people who pay taxes. But that's exactly what a lot of people do in their retirement. They take money out of their 401k and their IRA, and they send it into the IRS. Tom Fortino of Alpha Wealth Group believes there's a better plan for your retirement than Uncle Sam's plan of send it in. What if your current plan includes thousands of dollars in unnecessary taxes and fees? What if you're headed for higher Medicare payments, lower Social Security checks? What if the savings you may realize allows you to retire even earlier? Wouldn't you want to know all of that right now? Call Tom Fortino and the team at Alpha Wealth Group and find out today. Call 630-864-6711. The number again, 630-864-6711. You can also visit alphawealthgroup.com to schedule your no-obligation consultation.
Viking, dedicated to creating travel experiences for the thinking person, with programs designed for cultural enrichment on board and on shore. Discover more at Viking.com.
From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. Ooh, it has gone from bad to worse. All right, on the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, it is now 53 minutes. It is almost approaching an hour. Okay, this is a really big pothole. It's a center lane blocked near Lake Avenue. It's not affecting the other side, so if you can, just try to avoid this area and steer clear of it. Let's move on. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burn interchange, about 12 minutes. Outbound is about 9 minutes. This report is sponsored by Lumber Liquidators. Now through Tuesday at Lumber Liquidators, get flash sale savings up to 60% off beautiful flooring for every room in your home. Visit one of their more than 200 locations nationwide or shop online at lumberliquidators.com today. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be partly sunny and pleasant with a high of 77. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 57. Tomorrow will bring times of clouds and sun, reaching a high of 81. Thursday looks mostly sunny and warm with a high of 82. Friday will be very warm with sunshine mixing with some clouds, reaching a high of 86. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. I mentioned it, but let's really bring it home by giving the governor his time. This is J.B. Pritzker's message to ICE, message to anybody who would promote enforcement of federal immigration law.
To anyone who intends to come take away the freedom and opportunity and dignity of Illinoisans, I would remind you that a happy warrior is still a warrior. You come for my people, you come through me.
Mm-hmm. And as we said, his people are all of those, and that's just a sampling, all of those gang members, drug traffickers, kidnappers, and rapists who were released back onto Illinois streets because of his sanctuary policies. I just ran through them. This is from Department of Homeland Security release announcing Operation Midway Blitz in honor of Katie Abraham. Just an example of who Pritzker's people are. Big tough guy. Taking away people's freedoms who are violent criminals in this country illegally. It's remarkable the willful blindness among a certain segment of this state's population. It's just astounding. Hopefully, Operation Midway Blitz and the continued celebration of the lives of people like Katie Abraham who have been victimized by these awful public policies will drop some scales from some eyes. We'll see. For more on Operation Midway Blitz, pleased to be joined by Joe Abraham, who's Katie Abraham's father. Joe, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Tell us about when you got the word that Department of Homeland Security, the Trump administration, was going to honor Katie Abraham with this Operation Midway Blitz effort.
Yeah, we got a call on Sunday, and they were sort of brought up this operation, and they said they would really, they thought of Katie and would really love to honor Katie around this operation and dedicate it to her. And I, if you take the contrast between the complete and utter silence from my home state and my home politicians, and compare that to, say, the DHS folks, the silence is deafening. So I thought it was terrific that they thought of Katie, acknowledged Katie, wanted to do right by Katie, try to right the wrongs that were going on for the last 5 years, not only in the previous administration federally, but current administration in Illinois. And that soundbite you just played with J.B. Pritzker, where was he when Katie was killed? Whoever killed Katie seemed to get around him pretty easy. And I'm sorry if those words ring so hollow, because Katie should have been protected. That was part of our social bargain, social agreement, whatever you want to call it, unwritten. You be productive, you be law-abiding, you raise a solid family, you do all the right things, and pay the exorbitant taxes that they gouge us with, and we pay it. In return, all I think we're supposed to get is a little safety for our children. So I didn't get that. And again, I'm not sure how this guy got around J.B. Pritzker and killed Katie, but that's where I sit in my life right now without my youngest daughter.
The man that was arrested and charged in connection with Katie's death, a 29-year-old citizen of Guatemala, he was arrested in January. He was, attempting to flee. Of course, he was just south of Dallas, Texas, when he was picked up. Where does that case stand? Just updating us on that.
He's still incarcerated here in I believe Champaign County, And we've had continuances since January, so it's not even where we need to go down to Urbana to the courtroom. He doesn't go to the courtroom. They're just asking for continuances. I think the next court hearing is on the 24th of this month, later this month, and we suspect another continuance for another either 30 or 60 days.
The whole you mentioned this in an interview that you gave that I just I played a clip from before you joined us about the rhetoric coming from the pro sanctuary city and state, no person is illegal kind of crowd. And there's a lot of those types up on the, in the north suburbs around where you live. I wonder what your experience has been since Katie's death in terms of whether or not, as I was mentioning at the outset, some scales fell from some eyes within your circles in terms of people understanding that these sort of sentimental positions that they take have real world consequences, devastating ones.
If that's the case, I haven't seen it. I really think people are dug in here, and that's very disappointing because if you look at our state and even our area here in the North Shore, there really is no leadership. If you just take this one issue, Dan, and they make you choose, I guess. I'm not sure what they're doing, right? Because it's a two-way street. But it cannot be that on one side, it's either you must accept unaudited, unvetted, unlimited, doesn't matter who's in your state, or you're just kind of a racist, I guess. I think those are the choices. There's nothing in the middle. We have no other, we can't just audit folks. Dan, for example, if I go to another country and I'm not audited and screened and checked for background, I may not want to even enter that country. I don't even know what's going on in that country if there is no formal process. So I don't know where the shame is, where we can vet people that should come into our state. And let's be clear, leadership to me isn't a leader of Illinois to say the federal government failed on the border and they're dumping people on our state and there's nothing I can do. That to me is not leadership. Leadership would be like, okay, I'm getting hundreds of thousands of folks dumped on us. I will have my own vetting process here in the state to protect my citizens. I will vet those folks. I will filter out the ones that probably shouldn't be here and work with the federal government to remove those specific threats, right? So if something like that happened, even within Illinois, if we had any kind of real leadership or rational policies, Katie is not dead. Katie's sitting here with me, and she would not have received a death sentence based on what's happening in this state.
Yeah. So when you hear politicians, we heard from Dick Durbin over the weekend, same thing from Pritzker, they sort of, say the thing that you're supposed to say, which is, of course, people who pose a public safety threat or people who've committed a violent act, they should be removed from this country. But then you have all these people who've committed violent acts, per this Department of Homeland Security press release, whose ICE detainers were not honored. So it's what they say, but then you have to watch what they do.
100%. Because, and again, the silence is deafening coming from Senator Durbin as well, completely deafening. But exactly right. For example, the Julio Cucabol, who is allegedly killed Katie, was already deported, came back under an alias, right? So Mexican national alias, he's a Guatemalan national. So there's one, right? False documents there. And then even if he's in Illinois, my understanding is, and I can't get documentation on this, my understanding is he was pulled over for a traffic violation without a driver's license, shouldn't have been on the roads, right? These guys, but then again, he's back on the road. So I'm not sure those words match the deeds. I'm with you on that because, again, there's a couple of opportunities to have pulled this person out who killed Katie and not have him in this state. Didn't happen.
We've talked before, and I know you were not like a particularly political guy before this tragedy befell your Katie and your family. And I just wonder, what the last year has been like in terms of you being outspoken and more engaged on the policy side of this as well.
I find myself, Dan, getting more. I don't want to use more engaged, I guess, because a lot of the things I hear from our leaders, and I think really what sort of flipped the switch for me was in June when we were at the Oversight Committee hearings on sanctuary cities, and not one Democrat delegate or congressperson, no one approached me. No one acknowledged. And look, I wasn't looking for, I'm sorry and condolences. Really what I was looking for is, hey, things got out of control and we're trying to fix the wrongs. But I got nothing. I got nothing but silence. Now, Mary Miller, who Katie died in her district, she is a Republican, so a bunch of Republicans reached out to me, but I was more interested in hearing this is a one-party state that only the Democrats run this state. So I was willing to hear from them. Tell me why Katie had to die. So explain to me why it's okay that we, stay the course, even though Katie lost her life. Why is it okay? Explain to me. Help me understand so I could sleep better at night that Katie was sacrificed for some specific good reason. And I'll tell you, not one of them even acknowledged me. Jan Schakowsky, who was my congresswoman, must have walked by me maybe 5-6 times, didn't even look in my direction. J.B. Pritzker couldn't muster up. I was sitting right behind him, a stone throw away, couldn't even turn to me, couldn't acknowledge. I'm living here all my life. My family's been here since the early 1960s. Illinois is the only state I know. This is my governor. I just had a tragedy, and I felt sitting there, I felt like I was an annoyance to these folks. Like, my goodness, why does this guy have to show up, and why do they have pictures of Katie up on the stand that Chairman Comer's talking about? And that was kind of the turning point for me, going, oh, I get it. These guys are not compassionate. They only talk the game. He doesn't care. I think he's in it for the game. He's just trying to climb some mountain, and the bodies he leaves behind, it doesn't matter. He's just trying to get to a certain point, and that point, that peak, is not the governor of Illinois. And I feel very sad for our state right now.
Well said. The I asked if you had had anybody sort of come to you and say, Katie's death really turned me around on this issue, and you said that really hasn't happened. Have you received criticism from people for being outspoken in defense of the rule of law, in trying to prevent more tragedies like Katie?
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to get down on that part of it because it does upset me. But, you hear silly things. There really is silly things. It's, again, no one's illegal and all this other stuff. And I'm not disagreeing with that because I think people don't seem to understand that we are a family of immigrants. And here's the biggest thing that I retort to them is, you are backing politicians and policies that have created an environment where the majority of Americans now look at immigration negatively. And I'm not okay with that. That's not what I wanted. But what you created and what you're supporting is doing the exact opposite of what you want. So you're trying to achieve something in immigration, but now your policies and your support of the folks running this state has turned people against it. So I don't think people make that connection. But again, I mean, I can't. No one's been able to talk to me and explain, like, here's why this is the right thing, because it just seems like anarchy. It just seems like they're winging it. There's no real kind of progress. And I get that the state is so mismanaged, and I'm sorry for that, and that hundreds of thousands of people, citizens, have become sort of foreigners in Illinois and are leaving now, right? Refugees. He's created Illinois refugees. I'm starting to feel like one, like I can't stay in the state anymore. So I'm sorry that it's so mismanaged that people are fleeing and you just need to backfill them with anybody and everybody, but that's not okay. That's not a rational policy, and that's certainly not leadership.
Yeah, your wife has been outspoken as well. I just sort of on a personal level, how is your family coping through all of this? Because you have other children and, family members.
Yeah, and things are so broken with Katie. She was such a beautiful person, just a great spirit. Her sense of humor, her presence, the way she can read a room at her age, it was just incredible to us. So it is still so painful that we're missing this great spirit. And here's the thing that really kind of gets us, right, is this person not only killed Katie, gave her death without any due process, had separated us, right? Here's someone who separated our family. I'll never see Katie again. She's gone. What it comes down to is not only Katie died and that our family has a life sentence, but Katie's children are gone. Her children's children are gone. Her legacy is done. He broke the chain. Katie's done that way. It's just disgusting what had happened, and it could have been so avoided. I'm not sure how we're going to overcome that. I think it will be with us the rest of our lives.
Joe Abraham, father of Katie Abraham. Joe, thank you as always for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
And Joe joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Honey, the check engine light just came on and it's making that weird clunking sound again. This is all we needed before vacation. I just know this is going to be a huge repair bill, and our factory warranty expired last month.
Don't you worry your head about it, dear. Remember a few weeks ago when I was looking into vehicle protection plans? I signed us up for CarShield.
You did? But I thought those things were expensive and complicated.
Not CarShield. They have a low-cost month-to-month plan, and it covers our out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Plus, it includes free roadside assistance, free towing, and even car rental options at no additional cost.
Are you serious? So we won't have to pay for covered repairs again?
That's right. They even said we'd pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. It was so easy to get a free quick quote. Now we can focus on our trip instead of repair bills.
Don't wait for a breakdown to realize you need coverage. If you own a vehicle with an auto warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all, call CarShield now for your free quick quote. Call 800-330-8323. That's 800-330-8323. Call CarShield now and future-proof your ride. 800-330-8323. Again, 800-330-8323.
Most investments today feel like second jobs. Real estate? You're a landlord. Stocks? You're a day trader. Crypto? You're a full-time researcher. You've got a life to live. Your investment should help you live it. That's why more Americans are choosing gold. Noble Gold has helped thousands protect their future with real physical gold. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Why don't we do one of those one-day bathroom remodels?
Well, because I don't want a generic bathroom that looks like it belongs at a campsite.
Fair. I'd love something that fits us. A bigger shower, safety grab bars, better lighting, heated floors.
Let's go with Forever Remodeling. There's no templates. Every design is unique and exactly what we want.
At Forever Remodeling, no two bathrooms are ever the same. Visit Forever Remodeling today at foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4everremodeling.com. And tell them AM 560 sent you.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Xumo Play.
Hear sound teaching from God's Word from Dr. David Jeremiah on Turning Point. Each weekday morning at 9:30 on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
AM 560. The Answer.
That sound means it's time for In-Depth History with Frank, the history teacher from Arlington Heights, because there's nothing new in this world. It's just the history you don't know, and Frank does. Frank, take it away.
Good morning. A relatively recent experiment in physics has led
to something called the delayed choice quantum eraser. In this experiment, 2 quantum entangled particles were fired, but one of them was delayed. Interestingly, the outcome of this first fired particle was dependent on the result of the second particle, which occurred later, indicating that the future affects the past. I don't know. I'm not a rocket scientist. But it does help explain why many skillful politicians obfuscate and lie so much. They don't know future outcomes, so they take every position under the sun now in order to look right when that second particle or later future events occur. Better that than looking like Mayor Muriel Bowser, who had to completely change her tune after President Trump's maneuvers in D.C. led to reduced crime, and her constituents now know it. I don't think our own Governor J.B. Pritzker is psychologically capable of this type of about-face, but he has an even bigger problem than Bowser, as both his visceral hatred for Donald Trump and his threats to sue on the issue of federal intervention put him in the unenviable position of having to use the Posse Comitatus Act to do so. Passed in 1878, this law was clearly designed by Southern Redeemers to allow the reimposition of the highly discriminatory and unconstitutional post-Civil War black codes that had been dismantled by Republican federal intervention. A weak President Rutherford B. Hayes, who won the presidency by just 1 electoral vote, signed this law, as what could he do? Federal troops were already withdrawn, Northern investors had already fled, and the depression from the panic of 1873 was still on. As a result, 90 years of the Jim Crow regime of the Democratic Solid South ensued under Home Rule. So the question for JB is whether what is basically a Confederate law is something that he really wants to have tied to him. If Chicago crime drops significantly, well, J-Bob is taking an awful political risk, isn't he?
J-Bob, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, it's a good old boy, J-Bob from the North Shore. Sure, okay. By the way, interesting aside, Delayed Choice Quantum Eraser was the name of my college band. It was a erasure cover band we used to kill with Chains of Love.
Well, when I was at Elmhurst College, I remember seeing some weird name for a band, and one of my friends says it was something to do with physics and the double slit experiment, and so that was you, is what you're saying?
Yeah. I dressed up like Heisenberg, yeah, but still had the pop, the fun pop element that Erasure brought to the table.
I used to go to parties dressed as Schrodinger, and I had a cat as my mascot.
Of course.
So,
yeah.
Of course.
That's a great icebreaker with the ladies.
Sure is.
Yeah, Frank does very well. Frank, the history teacher from Arlington Heights, thank you as always. Well done. Coming up at 7:07, we have Phil Kerpen from the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, Steve Moore's outfit. We'll talk about a range of topics, including RFK Jr.'s performance last week. It is now 7 o'clock, AM 560 WIND Chicago.
It's called Operation Midway Blitz. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. A new illegal immigration crackdown launched in Illinois that the Department of Homeland Security says is in honor of Katie Abraham, who was killed in January in a drunk driving crash blamed on a driver here in the U.S. illegally. Her father, Joe, supports the operation targeting criminal aliens, telling Fox,
I love the terms I keep hearing. Families are separated. Children are being taken, or parents are being taken. My daughter was taken. We are separated. I will never see her again.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, a Democrat, says he's concerned about potential militarized immigration enforcement without due process, accusing ICE of violating detainees' human rights. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is calling dangerous a Supreme Court ruling that allows the Trump administration to resume illegal immigration raids in Southern California, lifting a block by a judge who'd called the raids unconstitutional, targeting people in part based on race. U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley tells Fox that's not true.
They use what's called reasonable suspicion, and that includes work sites. It includes other types of activities that they see, like if people are fleeing when they see an ICE agent or they see a Border Patrol agent. It includes all kinds of factors.
Israel has ordered an evacuation for all of Gaza City, where about 1 million Palestinians live, as it escalates the war against Hamas, taking out high-rise buildings that Israel says are housing Hamas infrastructure and surveillance. At least 21 people are dead in another Russian attack in the Ukraine war, 21 others injured.
Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky announced the strike, showing video of bodies scattered on the ground, killed by a glide bomb fitted with pop-out wings and satellite navigation. He says the bomb hit older civilians waiting to collect pension payments in the village of Yorova in eastern Ukraine, the Donetsk region, where Ukraine says Russia has 100,000 troops ready for a new offensive.
That's Fox's Chris Foster. Ryan Ruth will soon return to a federal court in Florida, acting as his own lawyer, as jury selection resumes to put Ruth on trial, charged in the second Trump assassination attempt last year. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It's 53 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. The Department of Homeland Security is launching an immigration crackdown this week in Chicago and across the state.
The DHS announced Tuesday on social media the launch of Operation Midway Blitz in honor of Katie Abraham, whose father spoke about the man accused of killing her in a DUI crash.
So to me, these are not the productive folks we want to bring into the country. You want to build a country on migrants, probably not the guy you want to stand behind to build a country.
Police say Abraham died in Urbana in January when an undocumented drunk driver slammed an SUV into the vehicle she and her friends were riding in. Officials say the ICE operation will target the criminal illegal aliens who flocked to the area because they knew Governor J.B. Pritzker and his sanctuary policies would protect them. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
The operation follows days of President Trump's warnings that he wants to clean up the city's crime problem. Mayor Johnson continues to insist that ramping things up any further by sending the National Guard to a city would be, quote, the wrong solution to a real problem. One person's in custody after a woman was shot and killed in the South Loop. Police say the victim got into a fight yesterday with another female in the 2200 block of South State Street. The other female pulled out a gun and shot the woman in the face. She died at the hospital and the suspect was taken into custody. And the Bears are searching for answers after losing their season opener to the Vikings 27-24 on Monday Night Football at Soldier Field. Chicago visits the Lions next Sunday. News is a service of Air Right Heating and Cooling, offering AM 560 listeners $56 off of any service, including inspections. Don't wait for a heat wave for that old air conditioner to break down. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Mike Gallagher points out the ultimate troll.
The behavior of Gavin Newsom is so wild, where he's got this shtick down now where he's trying to mimic Trump. And J.D. Vance was asked about it and said, I love his line, he's going to make him crazy. You talk about a real troll? Here's trolling. You can't mimic the king.
The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays at 9, right before Charlie Kirk at 11 on AM 560. The Answer.
Your home equity could vanish almost overnight, stolen by scammers who forge a deed and transfer it out of your name. The FBI calls it house stealing, and the worst part is you may not know it until it's too late. Find out if you're already a victim now at HomeTitleLock.com. Use promo code RADIO for a 30-day free trial, a title scan, and access to a title specialist, a $250 value. Go to HomeTitleLock.com now. Promo code RADIO.
You ever wonder why Verizon charges twice as much as Pure Talk for the same basic service? Think it might have something to do with the fact that Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion. That's billion with a B. Yeah, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. That's why they can offer unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Save an additional 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say the words Micro. That's pound 250. Micro.
This is Alistair Begg, inviting you to sail with me next September 5th through the 12th, 2026, on the Deeper Faith Norwegian Fjords cruise. If you've never been to this picturesque part of the world, the sights are magnificent, and the glacier-carved cliffs demonstrate the grandeur of God's creative handiwork. Throughout the journey, I'll be teaching from the Bible. Together we'll learn from the Scriptures, enjoy a week of fellowship and worship, and stop at several ports, where we'll stroll through quaint Nordic villages. This is an opportunity to explore scenes you won't soon forget, all while forming new friendships with fellow believers from around the world. Cabins are limited, so call today at 855-565-5519 or visit deeperfaithcruise.com. 855-565-5519 or visit deeperfaithcruise.com. I hope to see you on board.
Book today at 560theanswer.com/deeperfaith.
From the Team Hawkbrook Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. Still a mess on the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose. That's due to this pothole blocking a center lane. They also have 2 left lanes blocked. Just steer clear of it. It's going to be slow between Tower and Skokie, about 63 minutes. Outbound 15 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burn Interchange, 20 minutes. Outbound is about 14 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 33 minutes. Outbound is about 21 minutes. Traffic is a service of Goldilocks, offering Chicagoland state-of-the-art smart security systems to protect your home or business. AM 560 listeners receive 3 months of monitoring free with new installs. Get peace of mind by calling Goldilocks at 708-889-5600. Again, that's 708-889-5600. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be partly sunny and pleasant with a high of 77. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 57. Tomorrow will bring times of clouds and sun, reaching a high of 81. Thursday looks mostly sunny and warm with a high of 82. Friday will be very warm with sunshine mixing with some clouds, reaching a high of 86. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. The post-mortem on RFK Jr.'s appearance before the Senate Finance Committee last week continued into the weekend. RFK Jr., as we discussed quite a bit last week after his testimony, which was spirited to say the least, and there were some very good exchanges between him and senators, both Republicans and Democrats, about the influence of Big Pharma through its campaign cash, about all the lies that were promulgated by so-called public health officials during COVID. I mean, there's the part of what he is doing and what he is charged to do is to bring a sort of reckoning to these public health agencies for their conduct during COVID. If you can't do it individually, like Fauci and Birx, perhaps it can be done institutionally.
They don't want to hear the answers to the questions that they ask me. They want to make a little speech and then shut me down. But they can't deny the fact that we did worse than COVID. That the CDC is a broken agency. We did worse in COVID than any country in the world. We have 4.2% of the world's population. We have 20% of the world's COVID deaths. We literally we're the worst team in the league. I've been brought in as a new manager, and my job is to shake up the organization, to fire the people who were responsible for masking our children with no science, for social distancing orders with no science, for all the other things, for all of the other things that they try, for closing our schools at the behest of the teachers union and hurting workers all over America. Right. These were bad. We literally did worse than any country in the world, and it was because we forgot about the science. And what we're going to do, what the Trump administration is going to do, is to return gold standard science and make this agency the lead agency for public health in the world once again.
And President Trump was asked about the exchanges, including, as I said, with Republican senators like Bill Cassidy. And he backed RFK Jr.'s play. He likes that he's a bit of a provocateur, RFK Jr. He likes that he may be a bit of a contrarian.
Senator Bill Cassidy said effectively we're denying people vaccines. Do you have full confidence in what RFK Jr. is doing?
Well, I didn't get to watch the hearings today, but he's a very good person. And he means very well, and he's got some little different ideas. I guarantee a lot of the people at this table like RFK Jr., and I do. But he's He's got a different take, and we want to listen to all of those takes. But I heard he did very well today. But it's not your standard. It's not your standard talk, I would say, and that has to do with medical and vaccines. But if you look at what's going on in the world with health, and look at this country also with regard to health, I like the fact that he's different.
Yeah, that he's focused on chronic disease, particularly chronic disease in kids. But of course, RFK's testimony and the accusations that he is an anti-vax ideologue bring out all the COVIDians from, the bygone era of the last 4 years. But I should say, it's not a bygone era, not everywhere. California. Public health officials in California reporting a late summer COVID-19 wave are proposing masking. Because COVID cases have doubled in California, officials advise indoor masking. You thought they would never do that again? Well, I mean, in some states, some jurisdictions, California, apparently not one of them. Public officials at the state level recommending masking. The lies continue to cover the lies previously told. And actually others, too, like Paul Offit, who is Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And he was a bit of a COVIDian, but he also at least acknowledged some things that many others didn't acknowledge. That like by July of 23, he was agreeing that, myocarditis is a thing. It's a problem. He also didn't believe that COVID boosters, after the first couple of waves, were required for healthy young people because their healthy young people are unlikely to benefit. So he's not, complete COVIDian ideologue, but he also is not pleased with RFK Jr.
Because I think what happened in the first 2 years of the COVID pandemic is that people started to have a lack of trust in agencies like the CDC or the FDA, the National Institutes of Health, and he represents that. He represents basically the kind of this libertarian left hook that we leaned into those first 2 years of the pandemic, and now we see him as someone who has disdain for the agency that he heads, and we are all going to suffer that.
Yeah, I don't think that's exactly right. In fact, I think it's pretty far from being right. I think he has disdain, as many of us do, for what happened and for the decisions that were made and the propaganda that was promulgated and the lies that were told. And we feel like nobody gets held accountable professionally, if not legally, for how wrong they were about so many things. So, and it's not as you heard him too, it's not the agency he has disdain for, it's what the agency had become, and he's there to essentially do a turnaround job. But this is, the line you're going to hear from a lot of people that rose to some prominence, out of obscurity in the medical profession, from prominence because they were, platformed 24/7 by the cable news channels. And this is what you're hearing about RFK Jr. now as they try to basically take him out to get to Trump. As always, all roads lead to Trump. And this is, of course, being compounded by what Dr. Joseph Ladapo announced in Florida, that they're looking to end vaccine mandates altogether for school children. This is what you're going to hear from, the quote unquote medical professionals, the associations that Bernie Sanders is so impressed with, like the AMA and the American Pediatric Association and all these other politicized professional advocacy groups.
And we're getting his point of view, which is that he's going to make vaccines less available, less affordable, and more feared. I really fear for the health of America's children with him as the principal public health officer.
For more on this and other topics, so please be joined by Phil Kerpen, president of the American Commitment and the principal of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Phil, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Dan.
So, you were a sensible voice and a data-driven voice during COVID too. I know that you took made special attention on this topic as we were all trying to pour through and gain an understanding of what was being suggested by whom and what made sense and what didn't. I mean, how do you react to where we are with RFK Jr., his testimony last week, and the backlash against him, as well as Florida?
Well, I watch all these CDC employees out picketing with their signs and all this stuff, and I just think let them go. Patco them. Let them go. Let's get better people in there, because that institution in particular, but the entire public health apparatus, failed so catastrophically. And I think that the only way you can make the case for anything in public health at this point is to make it totally voluntary, to put the best data and information you have on the table and let people make their decisions. Once you're mandating things, once you're requiring things, people are going to be suspicious of it, and whether it's actually in their interest, or why would mandates be necessary. And a lot of countries do not have vaccine mandates. Sweden has none, for instance. If you want to look at the country that performed the best in terms of excess death during the pandemic, it didn't fall for the lockdowns and a lot of the destructive things. They don't mandate any of their vaccines. Now, they have very high childhood vaccination rates, but they do it without mandates. They do it by explaining the information. Parents decide what they want to do and so forth. And so I don't think Florida's so crazy with this. I think, if you want to rebuild trust and confidence, you've got to prove it. You can't have anymore take our word for it. We're going to decide what's best for you and your family.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's a classic tale. I mean, you destroy your credibility, and then you come back to me like nothing happened. But I remember I remember what happened. I remember you just lied to me, and now you're standing in front of me telling me what to do again, and you don't think I remember?
It's incredible. And by the way, California, this happened every year, because California is a warm weather state, and a lot of the states in southern latitudes, and COVID comes in two waves every single year. Okay, it's not like flu that basically comes in one wave. COVID comes in two waves every single year. We've seen this since it first appeared on the scene, and in warm weather places, they get it in the summer, probably because they're inside in air conditioning all summer in those places, but maybe something with the humidity or the atmospheric conditions makes it more transmissible. We don't really know for sure exactly why, whether there's something beyond just people being inside in air-conditioned spaces, something in the dynamics of the virus itself or not. But we do know this has happened every single year. It rises in the summer, and then it crashes when the kids go back to school and they start passing rhinoviruses around instead, and those get kind of market share in the virome. Every single year this happens. And every single year, after it's already peaked and is in decline, we get, oh my God, it's rising. We're going to bring back masks in California. These stories, these have happened every year. And the amazing thing is every time I start seeing these stories, I say, let me see what's going on there. And every year they start doing it a couple of weeks after COVID has peaked and is already declining.
Well,
it's an incredible ritual.
Yeah, it is a ritual. The other thing, too, is we're still talking, and they're still talking about cases as opposed to the idea of serious illness or death. We don't get any information to substantiate their right. Calling for masks again.
The one thing I would disagree with RFK on is we were not the highest COVID deaths in the world. That's not true. There were probably 10 or 12 countries that were higher in the metric that I used, which is all-cause excess death. We didn't do particularly well, but we were not the worst of the worst. We were very good at counting and attributing things to COVID. And, if we pay for your funeral expenses, if and only if COVID's somewhere on the death certificate, a lot of medical examiners that feel for a family want to help them pay for a funeral and so forth. They're going to put it on there. And, we also had some of the laxest standards for inclusion of anywhere in the world. So I don't really use the ticker numbers. I think you have to use the all-cause excess to kind of look at country performance during the pandemic. And we were not great, but we were not the worst. He had that wrong in my judgment.
The New York Times, just on this mask thing, too, because it's not just California. Of course, it's the coast. But New York Times feature story, the best cloth and K95 face masks for kids and toddlers as they go back to school.
That's this year?
Yeah. That's the August 29th story. Yeah. best cloth and KN95 masks for kids and toddlers. I mean, they're just incorrigible. They will never admit. They'll never accept any responsibility for anything, and they'll never admit that they were incorrect about anything. These COVIDians. It's astounding to watch. And then
they wonder why so many people want to, basically burn these institutions to the ground. The American Academy of Pediatrics is probably the worst of the worst, by the way, because as I'm sure you recall, but it bears repeating constantly, they originally got schools right, and they put out guidance the last week of June 2020 saying all the kids need to be in school. That's more important than 6 feet distance. It's more important than any of these other considerations. It was actually pretty, and it actually said, don't even try to mask elementary school kids. They did say to mask high school, which I disagreed with also. But on the whole, I was really pleasantly surprised when that came out. And then President Trump said, this is great. All the schools should be open. This is what the pediatricians say. And 7 days later, they reversed themselves in a literal joint statement with the two largest teachers unions in the country. They said, no, we meant, they should be open unless there's a lot of COVID around. And there was COVID everywhere. So they basically did a 180-degree reversal. And the only thing that had changed in the interim was President Trump was citing their guidance. They didn't want to be associated with him. They didn't want to support what he was supporting. And so what I think was nakedly political motivation took over. And they did it in the most, the most disgusting way possible, in a literal joint statement with the teachers unions that were basically saying we want all the schools closed until we get a massive payday shakedown ransom payment. And now, and I never really liked the American Academy of Pediatrics because they have a bad record on a lot of other things before. But
like transing kids.
Yeah, transing kids. I mean, they're the geniuses that came up with keep peanuts totally away from your kids for the first, however many years of life until they develop an allergy. And they're like, oh, sorry, we've created all these allergies. Actually, you need to expose them to peanuts. A total fiasco. You got a whole generation that has like all these hypersensitive peanut people because of their recommendations based on nothing. And they did the scam with the rear-facing car seats, with keep your kids rear-facing for years and years and years based on one study that was later retracted. So I don't like them as an institution. But, the media still loves them, and they'll run them out to criticize Trump and to criticize RFK. And, I'm generally pretty supportive of most of the vaccines. Generally, the data is pretty good. Obviously, the COVID data was very bad, and I'm not going to give that one to my kids. But, this idea that the only way you get people to do what you want them to do and improve the health of their kids is to mandate and to force rather than to explain and persuade, I just think it's going to cause a lot more problems than it solves. And I think RFK recognizes that.
Yeah, and the thing, I have my skepticisms about RFK coming in, and certainly statements he's made previously that I disagree with on vaccines as well as on environmental policy, for example. But my sense that the criticism that he's an anti-vax ideologue, that is really belied by the approach. Whether maybe his personal opinion is that or not, I don't know. But the approach he's taken in his job as HHS secretary is not one thus far of an anti-vax ideologue.
Yeah, well, look, he's also got kind of a dream team of sub-cabinet personnel.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
He's got really, really high-quality people. He's got my friend Jay Bhattacharya at NIH. We've got Marty McCary, who's fantastic at FDA.
Right.
Vinay Prasad, who was run out of town, was brought back, which I thought was a very good corrective. So we've got very, very bright people. And they're trying to wrangle bureaucracies. And by the way, we actually had reasonably good leadership at the CDC when Redfield was there. He wasn't the problem. The problem was he never got control of his own agency.
Yeah.
And so, when these people are walking out, I'm saying, great, good.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's going to be really hard to replace that monkeypox guy. So let me ask you another question about data, about another topic, since this is your bailiwick. The jobs numbers. Interesting piece at Committee to Unleash Prosperity from an analysis done by an economist named James Lavish. Basically that, and this has been said, Steve Moore said it when we talked to him last week, but the jobs numbers, it's always sort of been junk, but now because the response rate is so low and other factors, it's not. The sort of the read from this is it's completely unreliable. It's completely like sort of not statistically significant?
Well, you just look at the size of the revisions we've been getting, and you know that these first prints are just not that they're not going to stay what they are very long. They're going to bounce all over the place. And you're right, the response rate really collapsed during the COVID lockdowns, and it never came back up after. And you know, when you've got a survey that surveys around 1% of businesses, if that, it misses a lot. And in fact, they have this huge fudge factor with this lavish post what he was writing, but they have this huge fudge factor called their birth-death model, where they try to statistically estimate, how many businesses went out of business and how many new ones were created that they can't be surveyed yet. And it's total guesswork. It's total guesswork. And in fact, we're flying blind a little bit on jobs. We don't know if these bad jobs reports we've been getting are wrong and actually the jobs market is stronger than that, or if it's even worse. Or if it's even worse, if it's, we're really edging into an employment recession, it could be collapse just because the error band is so large around these numbers because of these problems. And, a lot of people criticize President Trump for firing Erica McIntyre but she didn't fix any of these problems. And, he did veer a little bit into conspiracy territory when he said she was politically motivated. I don't think there's evidence of that. It might be true, but, there's no evidence of that. Mm-hmm. But what we do know is she didn't fix these surveys. We have this huge divergence between the household survey and the employer survey. We didn't figure that out. We didn't fix it. We've got this response rate problem. Now, this is not unique to BLS. I mean, the same thing's happening in political polling. The same thing's happening in every other kind of survey methodology. It's hard to reach people these days. I get that. But you got to figure out a way to do it where you're not going to be issuing these huge revisions on a regular basis, and where you've got where you're relying on this statistical model that's essentially guesswork about how many new businesses were created and destroyed. And so, I think I really like some of the ideas that E.J. Antoni's put forward. I hope that it'll be confirmed. I think that, the most important one is the idea of offering some incentive, some kind of a tax incentive or inducement for survey participation. I mean, you can't ask people's time just out of the goodness of their heart for businesses to participate. We see that does not get enough participation. And so if we have some sort of a small incentive to bring participation back up, I think that would be really helpful. And I also think they've got to fix this model of how many businesses are created and destroyed so that it's much more data-based and they have inputs to determine what's actually happening rather than sort of a guesswork kind of model. This trillions of dollars move with these numbers when they come out.
Right.
We need to figure out how to make them much better on the first print.
Speaking of big moves that are policy related, what sort of contingency planning do you suspect is going on in the event that the Supreme Court concludes unfavorably on Trump's argument in terms of his power to impose tariffs, or even offer some sort of middle way where some of the tariffs imposed are okay and others are not on various legal theories that have been presented?
Well, I think there's a pretty strong likelihood that they will overturn the reciprocal tariffs and the tariffs on Canada and Mexico that were based on the IEEPA. I think that it's hard. It was an 8-4 decision at the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. The 4 that dissented included 2 Democrat-appointed judges and 2 Republican-appointed judges. And so this is not going to be a clean split, I don't think, at the Supreme Court. It's hard to sort of estimate, and it's hard to sort of forecast what they're going to do, because the 3 judges who are most inclined as a matter of legal philosophy to support the president because they believe in unchecked massive federal power are the 3 Democrat-appointed justices. On the other hand, they're not likely to do anything that helps Trump. And so, these sort of the practical political considerations, to the extent that motivates the legal reasoning, they're more likely to vote against the president. And I think, I like to think that the Republican-appointed justices are not susceptible to such pressures and considerations, and they'll decide on the legal merits. But realistically, some of them may vote for the president's position out of, sympathy towards him and his agenda. And so I don't think it's going to be a neat 6-3 Republican-appointed justices strike it down. Democrat-appointed justices uphold it, even though on the legal merits, that's kind of what you would expect based on recent cases. It's going to be not that. And so I don't know what it will be. But I'm a strong believer in the idea that major policies, major economic policies for the country, especially tax policies, need to be set by Congress. And so I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of the president dusting off a very old law that doesn't talk about tariffs and sort of fashioning national economic policy himself on that basis. I think that's a legitimately legislative function. And so, I think if he wants these policies, he should convince Congress to pass them. And that may be one of the responses we could see. Now, there are other authorities that are much more legitimate. So, for instance, the steel and aluminum tariffs under Section 232, those are not in question. Those are going to stay in effect with this. And that's actually, I think, from a policy standpoint, a little unfortunate because those are some of the most destructive tariffs. There's so many companies that use those metals as inputs, and they've been being hit by big cost increases, and the manufacturing harm outweighs the benefit of the narrow sector that produces steel and aluminum. We've seen that pretty clearly in the data. But those are going to stay in regardless of what happens with this. The court could order all those tariffs that were paid to be refunded, which would be kind of challenging logistically for the Treasury. But we may see the president try to reimpose them under a different authority. What I would hope he would do, and what I would like to see him do, is submit the tariff schedule and the agreements that you've got with these different countries and with the EU, and send them to Congress for a vote. Let's do this the legitimate way. If we want to make it the law, let's make it the law the legitimate way. And if it fails, that tells you that it doesn't have the support and it shouldn't be in effect. And so I'm, your audience may be a little bit more with Trump, no matter what he does, no matter how he does it, than I am. But I think process is really important. Even if you support what he's doing, process is really important, because if you give unlimited powers to a president in a particular area and you undercut the legal precedents that have been moving the other way in recent years, a lot of things are going to happen in the next Democratic administration that you're not going to like. And so I think you need to see beyond the particular situation and get these things right on principle.
Phil Kerpen, president of the American Commitment and principal of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Phil, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
You too. And Phil joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line. Coming up 7:37, all things Illinois policy related with Ted Dabrowski. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 54 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. President Trump is weighing a possible federal takeover of the 9/11 Memorial and Museum in New York City as the anniversary of the attacks approaches. White House officials say the idea is still in early exploratory stages. It remains unclear how the federal government could assume control of the nonprofit-run site. U.S. workers are increasingly uncertain about being able to move to another job.
In fact, that confidence has hit a record low, according to a survey from the New York Federal Reserve out Monday. It found 45% of workers thought they could get another job. That's down nearly 6 points from July and the lowest since the beginning of the survey in 2013. It comes as hiring has slowed across the country. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Postal shipments to the U.S. are down 80%. Data from the Universal Postal Union noted that 88 shipment providers around the globe have completely or partially suspended shipping to the U.S. The findings come after President Trump ended the de minimis exemption that made lower value shipments exempt from tariffs. While it's likely many postal services will eventually resume shipments, it's also likely to come at a higher price for consumers. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants? With medical PPO insurance, it's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com, making smiles great again. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Larry Elder thinks the media is being ridiculous.
There was a hashtag called Trump is Dead, and it was trending. The same people who covered up for Biden for years are concerned that the president, who held 3 consecutive press conferences recently in one day, takes a little bit of time off, and he's not being transparent about his health.
The Larry Elder Show. Weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
It's Reveille.
In Illinois, when it comes to property taxes, there's no need to come up with new headlines because the story is always the same. Property taxes are going up. The headlines in Cook County are a good example. In 2023, ABC 7 Eyewitness News headline was, Cook County property taxes skyrocket for thousands of homeowners and businesses. Last year, the Fox 32 headline was, My tax bill increased 86%. Cook County homeowners confront assessor about property tax hike. The most recent headline for the Chicago Tribune editorial, Chicago's looming property tax hit looks like it will strike lower income neighborhoods hardest. Assessors seem to get blamed for higher taxes, but they shouldn't be. The assessor's job is to fairly and accurately assess the value of property, and that's all. Fritz Kagi, the Cook County assessor, put out a memo in May commiserating with property owners and recognizing their burden. He reported that almost 250,000 Cook County homeowners have recently seen their property tax bills spike by 25% or more in a single year. And he said, we need property tax relief that will serve as a crucial safeguard for homeowners in this untenable situation, protecting them from unsustainable tax spikes. In Illinois, the primary causes for high bills are local government spending exacerbated by state mandates on pensions and union rules. Politicians could protect owners from ever-increasing bills by simply passing laws that cap property taxes, reform pensions, and cut union control. Local politicians could stop the mission creep and focus on core functions. For immediate relief, legislators could simply cut the state budget and return the money to property owners with a simple increase in the property tax credit. So voters shouldn't let the Democrats in charge lie to them anymore. Property tax relief is doable. They just don't want to do it. I'm Jeannie Ives. Join me Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. on this station and sign up for my newsletter at breakthrough-ideas.com.
Well, hello there. My name is Mitzi. Been married about 27 years, and I wanted to share with you. My husband, a couple of years ago, had a very brutal case of the shingles. And, of course, seeing somebody that you really care for suffer is never pleasant. Earlier this year, my husband came down with a second case of shingles. You know, it was beginning to take hold that I had a bottle of Dr. Michael Huber's Virogo. And so I said to my husband, Bill, I need you to take 2 shots of this. He had to take 2 shots a day. And lo and behold, by about day 3, about 6 doses in, he began to get some relief. I attribute my husband's quick recovery from the shingles to the use of Virogo.
Order your bottle of Virogo today online at myvirogo.com and use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30% off at checkout. That's myvirogo.com, coupon code IMMUNE. Maha and Virogo, making America healthy again.
If you want thick, healthy, gorgeous hair, then you need Hair Volume from New Nordic. Available online at Amazon and newnordicusa.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
From the Team Hawkburg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. Still a mess on the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose. Well over an hour. Now we've got 2 right lanes blocked. It is jammed between Tower and Skokie. This is due to a pothole. The other side, 17 minutes, no biggie. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burn Interchange, 25 minutes, outbound 16 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 36 minutes, outbound 24 minutes. This report is sponsored by Primatene Mist. During an asthma attack, every second feels like an eternity. Primatene Mist works fast. It's clinically shown to open airways quickly, providing quick relief of mild symptoms of intermittent asthma. Get the #1 FDA-approved over-the-counter asthma inhaler, Primatene Mist. Breathe easy again. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now check your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be partly sunny and pleasant with a high of 77. Expect partly cloudy skies tonight with a low of 57. Tomorrow will bring a mix of clouds and sun, reaching a high of 81. Thursday looks mostly sunny and warm with a high of 82. Friday will be very warm with a mix of sun and clouds, reaching a high of 86. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. That theme music means it's time for our weekly conversation with Ted Dabrowski about all things Illinois policy related. Let's talk about K through 12 a little bit. Roland Fryer, Harvard economist, economics professor at Harvard. He's one of those guys, anything that he writes or any studies he produces, you want to pay attention to. The Economics of Education Reform, his piece in the Journal. In Houston, a research project I led called Apollo 20 showed it was possible to erase the racial achievement gap in less than 2 years by applying simple reform principles to the worst performing schools. Today, the tools we use sit on the shelf, not because they fail, but because leaders fail to act. (2012) Dateline. My graduate student Will Dobby and I collected unprecedented data from nearly 50 New York City charter schools to see what practices truly boosted student learning. Class size and teacher credentials, political obsessions for decades, mattered little. Class size. And it's all, even to the extent that class size is marginally impactful, we've got it all wrong in terms of where class sizes should be smaller versus where they can be bigger without impact. And we've got it flipped where they should, in terms of the class sizes in grade school versus high school. Of course we do. Central planning. But anyway, back to Fryer. What he found. Best practices. What mattered most were 5 concrete replicable practices. 1, more instruction time. 2, high expectations. 3, frequent teacher feedback. 4, data-driven instruction. And 5, high-dosage tutoring. Together, he writes, these 5 tenets explain roughly half the difference between effective and ineffective schools. 2012. In Houston, at the time, Superintendent Terry Greer opened the door to Roland Fryer's research and these 5 tenets I just mentioned, his 5 tenets. Together, he writes, we applied the 5 tenets in 20 struggling public schools serving nearly 20,000 students. We lengthened the school year by 20%, brought in hundreds of tutors, replaced 95% of principals and half the teachers while retraining the rest, embedded data into instruction, and built a culture of high expectations. The results were astonishing. In elementary school math, students gained the equivalent of 4 extra months of learning a year, enough to erase the racial achievement gap in less than 2 years if we implemented these practices in the lowest performing half of schools nationwide. Eliminate the racial achievement gap in 2 years. In secondary schools, where skeptics said reform was impossible, students gained nearly 8 additional months of learning in a 9-month school year. By 2013, the Apollo program, as he called it, started in 2012. By 2013, it was finished. Not despite its success, but because of it. If you had told me in 2010 that we would close the racial achievement gap in math in under 2 years, I would have laughed at you, but we did. Even so, the funding was pulled from the schools because they were no longer the worst in the district, and they predictably backslid. This fall, he writes, Professor Fryer, millions of children are walking into schools that still bear the scars of COVID and our abandonment of real reform. Average math scores are lower than they were 2 decades ago. Reading scores have flatlined. Black and Hispanic students lost the most ground. The nation is facing the largest educational crisis in a generation. And that isn't even the real tragedy. The tragedy is we already know what works. High dosage tutoring, extended learning time, relentless use of data and feedback, and refusing to accept the soft bigotry of low expectations. Those aren't theories. They're proven. They worked in Houston. They worked in Denver. They can work anywhere if we have leaders with the courage to act. By the way, I should mention, Roland Fryer, if you're not familiar with him, is a black gentleman. That's not important other than for the identitarians listening that this is not some, honky in an ivory tower that is telling, all of these urban central planners, mayors, and teachers unions and CP and school boards that know better. But because they're down with the struggle. These are our kids, as Stacey Davis Gates says. Yeah. Well, you're not going to be able to play that card on Roland Fryer. Sorry. But in terms of what works and and bringing back what he achieved in Houston with cooperation with the school district to places like Chicago and quickly, not just Chicago, a lot of mediocre to less than mediocre suburban school districts too. Could be done. Or we can just continue to throw money at these schools and, as you heard from Jeannie Ives' commentary, liquidate people's homes through confiscatory property taxation to achieve nothing, as per the reading and math scores statewide under Pritzker. Ted Dabrowski, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. I mean, there's so much there in terms of just. You start with culture of high expectations. That's a starting point. You demand something more and better than what you've been doing. And, it's been a mess in our schools for, as I said, 50 years now at least. And, start with culture of high expectations and you're going to get big changes.
Well, and the other thing, too, is just, again, somebody has to be honest and I guess politically courageous enough to say, all of this backslapping ourselves because we spend we're always in the top 10 in total spending per pupil on K through 12.
That's right.
We're also, I think, top in the country at the higher education level in spending per pupil. And again, I'm sorry, what do we have to show for it? And, at the university level, let's talk about the university level in addition to K through 12 as well, with the prices that are being charged, the debt loads kids are coming out with, particularly from from schools that, that they shouldn't even be open, like Chicago State, frankly. But I mean, I digress. It's just this idea that you watch politicians congratulate themselves for spending more of other people's money to no effect, and in some cases to negative effect.
Well, and I think that's it's a big problem in a lot of states. It's probably the biggest here in Illinois and a couple other states, and that's because we've been taken over by the teachers unions, and in particular the Chicago Teachers Union, and so you've got the back scratching between the politicians and the unions, and it's created a whole complex, right? And that's why they don't talk about the real metrics. They will never talk about reading levels. They will talk about how much they spend and how many kids graduate. You can graduate any kid you want, right, just by changing the rules. So they graduate, 80, 90% of kids. They're spending, it's CPS now. It will be $33,000 next year. It'll be $33,000 a kid, and the media will parrot it, and that's why
spending goes and as CPS. Generally speaking, as people flee the state and higher ed, spending going up while enrollment going down.
Yeah, and that's it's a function of both, right? More and more spending, fewer students. And it's happening in higher ed as well. So this is what's happening, and the media parrots the same things about high graduation rates and big spending, and places like U.S. News rank Illinois high for education because we spend a lot. But I think, Roland Fryer, by the way, is great. He's awesome. And, just his focus on things like data-driven instruction, right, and high-dosage tutoring. I need to tell a positive story about one of the best schools in Illinois, and it revolves around this. And I haven't talked about it, and I've never written about it, but I need to, and I will really, praise what they do. Down there near East St. Louis, there's a few school districts, Aviston, Bartelso. These are small towns, let's call it, blue collar, working class people, largely white, but they have had this is before COVID. They had the highest scores in Illinois in reading, 85%. And what's amazing about there is they were spending about $8,000 a student. So it was among the lowest in the state in spending, and they had the highest.
85% of kids are reading at grade level.
Yeah, that was before COVID.
Before
right,
COVID.
now they're 75 or something like that. So they're not doing as well post COVID. But number one in the state, Avison and Bartell. So number one and number two, and I think they were like the bottom two in spending. And so I went down there because I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So my colleague and I drove down there. We met the school, and what you found is a culture of high expectation. These people said we're competitive, we like to do well, and you could feel it in the school. And and they said if they had any problems, the community came in to help. It's fascinating, and they're doing it with little money. And they said we do what we can with what we have, and it's a fascinating story. It should be plastered all over the state that you can do really well with little money.
Yeah, and the soft bigotry of low expectations, that phrase that's been around for a long time because it's so descriptive. The way it manifests itself is like, what does that mean? They don't have a culture of excellence, or they don't have high expectations. What it means is no excuses. They don't spend their time making excuses, blaming who's ever in the White House, or blaming outside forces, or this is what we have to get done, and we're going to get it done. I mean, that's what you see from schools that are doing well versus schools that are not.
Yeah. Well, and they're not victims, right? I mean, I think you start with that. You're not a victim. You actually have power to learn, and of course, like you say, the human capital, the teachers, the leaders, they lead that. And if they can create an environment where, hey, we can do well. I mean, I remember what my parents did with me, right? You create a culture of expectation, of excellence. Hard work, and you can get there. It's of course it's not easy, but that's nothing good is easy. But I saw this in those schools, and it's fascinating. It's great.
Ted Dabrowski, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks as always, Ted. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Bob Chivato, owner of Go Exceed and a customer of Signature Bank. By leveraging AI and machine learning, we provide data management solutions for corporations to save time and money managing their cellular devices. While we rely on machines to help us run our business, we believe personal relationships are essential. This is why we chose Signature Bank. Having a banking partner who understands our background, our business, and our priorities is fundamental to our success. Any bank can provide basic services, but having a bank that you can trust, one that looks out for you and treats your business like its own, that's irreplaceable.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature Bank can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature Bank at 773-467-5600 or visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Let me tell you about a proud new sponsor of Chicago's Morning Answer, Access One IT Services and Support. Chicago business owners, listen up. Your phone, internet, and IT should work well 24/7. But when it doesn't, who are you calling? An overseas help desk? Don't do that. If you want clear, reliable local experts, consider Chicago's best, Access One. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for more than 30 years from their headquarters in the West Loop. Whether it's voice over IP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One has you covered. Access One is Chicago-owned, Chicago-run, and serves thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore and everywhere in between. Rated top 5% in customer satisfaction, and trusted by law firms, clinics, tech startups, manufacturers, and many more sectors. If you're in business, make sure your IT works well every day. Start a conversation about your business needs today by calling Access One at 1-800-804-8333. You can also visit them online at accessoneinc.com. That's access1, O-N-E, accessoneinc.com. And tell them AM560 sent you when you do.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at truepowergenerator.com. That's truepowergenerator.com. And right now, AM 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty with their Generac. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
You need to be tuning into the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, the radio companion to the Amazon best-selling book, Success Blueprint, How to Build the Retirement You Deserve. Each week, Michael shares strategies designed to help reduce market risk through income-generating investments that can provide steady returns. Because if you can avoid a big loss, you don't need to take big risks. Catch the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, Saturday mornings at 10, right here on AM 560 The Answer.
Welcome back to Ask Hasselus. I'm Weston. What's your question?
You know when that big online store has special days with ridiculously low prices?
Yeah.
Why doesn't Hasselus Mattress do that?
We do.
You do? When?
Every day.
Okay, good one. But really, when are the big discounts?
Like I said, every day. You know our showrooms are employee-free.
So I can give your mattresses a try?
With no pushy sales guy.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that allows us to sell Sealy Posturepedic, Beauty Rest, and more for way less.
Give me numbers.
Our 35 beds from the top 5 brands start at $393. Free next day delivery, too.
And you do this every day?
Yeah. Plus, through Monday, get a free box spring with every Sealy Posturepedic, Beauty Rest, and more, or take an equal amount off an adjustable base.
Wow.
So I guess you could say now is a prime time to buy.
I see what you did there.
Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you or shop online at Hasselus.com.
Attention investors with a 401k, IRA, or retirement account. The dollar has lost over 25% of its value in the past 5 years, and it's only going to get worse. Are you prepared for what's about to happen next? We are Advantage Gold, the #1 customer-rated gold IRA company in America, and we are helping Americans prepare for the great de-dollarization by diversifying their portfolios with physical precious metals. We've partnered with former chief economist of the IMF, Kenneth Rogoff, to give away his latest book called Our Dollar, Your Problem, a must-read for investors. Call 800-741-GOLD, and we'll rush a free copy of Our Dollar, Your Problem to your doorstep and include our special gold IRA investing kit, valued at $49. The dollar is losing value fast. Call 800-741-GOLD now to get your free copy of Our Dollar, Your Problem and our free gold IRA investing kit. Supplies are limited. Consult your tax and financial professional before investing. Call 800-741-4653. That's 800-741-GOLD.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Pluto TV.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 8:08, we'll talk to investigative reporter Benjamin Ryan about the trans mob coming for a medical researcher. Another cautionary tale. That's at 8:08. It is now 8 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Ryan Ruth is back in federal court. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, where he's not just the defendant, but also his own lawyer in the case of the second Trump assassination attempt last year. It's the second day of jury selection.
Federal Judge Eileen Cannon made it clear he can't make any sudden movements or roam around the courtroom during questioning.
Fox's Dana Marie McNichol outside the court in Fort Pierce, Florida. She reports on day one.
21 jurors had been dismissed. Another 120 potential jurors returned to the court today. Ruth objected to just one removal, which was a young woman who wrote that she believes felons should have their voting rights restored. Ruth himself is a convicted felon from a 2002 weapons case.
Weapons charges are among those Ruth faces, found with a rifle near the Trump golf course where the president was playing last September. There's a new illegal immigration crackdown in Illinois, which Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker opposes, calling it President Trump's war on America's third largest city. Fox's Griff Jenkins is in Chicago.
We are riding along again today with ICE. It is, of course, ICE-led, but you have multiple federal law enforcement partners, ATF, DEA, the Marshals, all in cooperation of the search to go after violent criminal illegal aliens.
ICE agents can resume a big illegal immigration crackdown at job sites and other locations in Southern California after the Supreme Court undid a judge's order that ruled those raids were unconstitutional. A murder case in Charlotte, North Carolina is under federal investigation, captured on video showing a man on a train stabbing a woman sitting in front of him unprovoked. Fox's Alexandria Hoff reports from the White House the suspect had 14 prior arrests and mental health issues.
His own mother had pled to have him behind bars just due to his ongoing troubles, his issues, and the threats that he had made. DeCarlos Brown Jr. had been in and out of courts and jails for a decade when police say he murdered 23-year-old Irina Zertuska. She was killed exactly 3 years since she moved to the U.S. from Ukraine to escape the war.
America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It's 57 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. Homeland Security's rolling out Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago, targeting what it calls criminal illegals, after President Trump repeatedly vowed to crack down on the city's crime. The move comes as Mayor Johnson pushes back against calls for the National Guard deployment. He says sending the National Guard to the city is the wrong solution to a real problem.
Johnson made the comments in a new opinion piece for the New York Times, saying that the lowering of crime in the city doesn't require an occupation. He went on to say that if Trump listened to city leaders, he would recognize that Chicago just experienced record low homicide numbers. Trump said Sunday he wasn't going to war with Chicago, saying he was going to clean up American cities. I'm Mark Mayfield.
A top aide to a former Chicago City Council member is expected to plead guilty in a corruption case. Chester Wilson was indicted with ex-alderwoman Carrie Austin after they were accused of soliciting home improvement perks from a developer in exchange for Austin's influence at City Hall. The pair allegedly received new kitchen cabinets, granite countertops, bathroom tile, and other items for free at a discount. Chester was scheduled to appear in court in November. Now, during a status hearing on Monday morning, a plea deal was reached. The judge set a change of plea hearing for October 29th. Meanwhile, Austin has been ruled medically unfit for trial. News is a service of almostfreeteeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants with medical PPO insurance? It's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at almostfreeteeth.com. Making smiles great again. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes, but now time for the Signature Bank Business Beat.
I'm Liz Clayman, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Apple shares are narrowly lower. The new lineup of iPhones is expected today. A slimmer Air model is expected, which could eventually lead to Apple's version of a folding phone. Volkswagen says it will invest up to $1.2 billion in artificial intelligence over the next 5 years. VW expects the investment to result in billions worth of savings. There's merger news. Japan's Mitsubishi Electric is buying San Francisco-based cybersecurity company Nozomi Networks. The deal's valued at about $1 billion. Drug giant Novartis is buying Tourmaline Bio, a company working on a cardiovascular treatment, and mining companies Anglo American and Tech Resources are merging, creating one of the world's largest copper producers. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda. Invested in you.
Town Hall News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology. Written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
The summer heat in Chicagoland is no joke. And if your old air conditioner is making funny noises, you may already know it's time for a new unit.
Look, your air conditioner, it's a disaster. People are telling me it's the worst ever.
Don't sweat it, literally. When it comes to cooling your home, Air Right Heating and Cooling does it the best.
And they love our country. Beautiful people.
Rebates are still available, financing is flexible, and at Air Right installations are smooth and professional with no surprises.
It's beautiful. Some people say it's the coolest air anyone's ever felt. I don't know. That's just what they're saying. It's doing an incredible job. Really tremendous.
Plus, tell them AM 560 sent you, and Air Right will give you $56 off any service. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling, doing it right since 1959.
Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr., now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Are you turning 65 and thinking about Medicare? Or are you over 65 and haven't enrolled yet because you still have coverage at work? Either way, Medicare done correctly will be the best health insurance you will ever have. Imagine having an annual deductible of only $257. There are only two good things about aging, wisdom and Medicare. But to navigate the Medicare maze properly, you need a mentor. Best part? My guidance costs you nothing. Call me. I can help.
If you're tired of calling a bureaucrat at an 800 number to help you navigate Medicare, then you need a local expert on your side. Your own health insurance mentor. C. Stephen Tucker from healthinsurancementors.com is someone I know and trust. He's a 30-year licensed broker who's been educating our listeners for more than a decade. Steve, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Thanks, Dan. They can visit healthinsurancementors.com or call me directly at 630-674-1551. That's 630-674-1551.
Your home equity could vanish almost overnight, stolen by scammers who forge a deed and transfer it out of your name. The FBI calls it house stealing, and the worst part is you may not know it until it's too late. Find out if you're already a victim now at HomeTitleLock.com. Use promo code RADIO for a 30-day free trial, a title scan, and access to a title specialist, a $250 value. Go to HomeTitleLock.com now. Promo code RADIO.
You ever wonder why Verizon charges twice as much as Pure Talk for the same basic service? Think it might have something to do with the fact that Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion? That's billion with a B? Yeah, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. That's why they can offer unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Save an additional 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say the words micro. That's pound 250, micro.
From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. A mess on the Edens this morning, inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose. It's well over an hour, 77 minutes. 2 right lanes are blocked. This is due to a big, giant pothole, center lane block near Lake Avenue. It's going to be slow between Dundee and Skokie. On the outbound side, it's about 33 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Byrne interchange, 29 minutes. Outbound, about 19 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the old post office, 57 minutes. Outbound, about 33 minutes. On the Stevenson inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 49 minutes. Outbound, about 27 minutes. Traffic is a service of Fox Valley Coins. This is a great time to bring in your scrap gold jewelry and sterling flatware. Cash or check is offered on the spot. FoxValleyCoins.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be partly sunny and pleasant with a high of 77. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 57. Tomorrow will bring times of clouds and sun, reaching a high of 81. Thursday looks mostly sunny and warm with a high of 82. Friday will be very warm with sunshine mixing with some clouds, reaching a high of 86. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. You would think after the CAST review in the UK on trans and kids and the moves by a number of children's hospitals to stop providing puberty blockers and doing surgeries on minors that are, gender bending in nature, that we would be past stories like the one coming to us from McMaster University. But I guess you'd be wrong. It turns out that just because there have been some losses with respect to men and women's sports and trans and kids and not informing parents that their kid is identifying one way in school and a different way at home, conspiring against parents, because there have been some setbacks to the trans extremists and their allies, that they have ceased their efforts. Well, then that's where you'd be wrong. So is the story of Dr. Gordon Guyette, an authority on medical research, as per Benjamin Ryan's reporting at unheard.com. An authority on medical research capitulated to a trans activist mob and undermined his own field in the process. He's a professor at McMaster University in Canada, co-founded the field of evidence-based medicine 30 years ago. His team had been conducting systematic reviews of the evidence behind gender transition treatments for youth. And like several other researchers before them, they found the idea that transing young people makes them happier and more well-adjusted, addresses their issues, I guess, for lack of a better description. Found the evidence weak and uncertain, not positive patient outcomes, and thus unleashed the mob. And what happened next? Well, for more on this, let's talk to Benjamin Ryan, New York City-based reporter. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, among other publications, unheard.com, which is where you can find this story, The Taming of a Gender Researcher. Benjamin Ryan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us what Dr. Gordon Guyette and his team of researchers found and then what they disavowed under pressure.
Well, as you said, they, like all the other systematic literature reviews on this subject, found that the evidence was essentially weak and uncertain. That doesn't mean that it couldn't possibly one day be proven per se, but just that we're operating in a low information environment. So crucially, their research was sponsored by a nonprofit called the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine, or SEGM. And they're a group that formed in 2019. They're run by a very small group of people, and they're sort of a larger kind of ad hoc coalition of people who they work with. And so they had established a commission with Gordon Guyette's research team at McMaster University in 2021 to conduct 5 systematic literature reviews about youth gender medicine. And the first 3 of those papers came out earlier this year. There's one on puberty blockers, one on cross-sex hormones, and one on mastectomies. And they all basically found the same thing. So meanwhile, parallel to this, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the nonprofit in the United States liberal advocacy group, they issued a report in 2023 that was a very long typo-ridden report that essentially used a lot of guilt by association techniques to suggest that, among other groups, SEGM was a hate group. That they were trafficking with conservative anti-LGBTQ organizations, et cetera. And so the following year, 2024, SPLC officially designated SEGM a hate group. One of the ways that they tried to insinuate, at least, that SEGM was trafficking with conservative anti-LGBTQ organizations is to say that they received money from certain funds, financial funds, that also channeled money to these other groups that were, the bad people. However, what they were describing was just a simple donor advisory fund, which any individual person can get at Charles Schwab or whatever bank, which basically is just a repository for people's cash, and then they channel them on to charities. So, never the twain did meet within these banks. They didn't have these financial threads didn't have anything to do with one another. So it just sort of speaks to the general messiness, if you will, of that report. But there are many people who take SPLC's word very seriously. So ultimately, activists started advocating against Gordon Guyot's group, the fact that they had coordinated with taking a commission from SEGM, and there became a lot of pressure that ultimately went internally in McMaster, other trans advocates, and other researchers, et cetera. There was a major editorial in the local paper in Hamilton, Ontario, that pressured them to disavow SEGM, which ultimately, on August 14th, the Gordon Guyot's research group did. They disavowed SEGM. They suggested that these were not evidence-based people who ran it, although they didn't say what they meant by that. And they said very strongly that they did not believe that their work should be interpreted to back bans of pediatric gender transition treatment. And they also used, crucially, activist language in the letter. They used terms like medically necessary to describe this treatment, despite the fact that their own research found that you couldn't support that statement. It was not an evidence-based statement. And they also described cross-sex hormone use as hormone replacement therapy, which is a scientifically inaccurate term, which is co-opted from menopause treatment, because you can't replace a level of hormones in the body that was never there. So here, that brings us to today. And so that's essentially because of the requirement that evidence-based medicine as a discipline, which, as you said, he co-founded, has a certain level of academic independence from the fray. It really calls into question the very credibility of Gordon Guyot's lab and his field. But the thing is, he was up against such strong pressure. The alternative that he was facing was that the reputations of especially his younger researchers would be trashed because of their association with a group that is considered to be a hate group. So he essentially chose to protect those people's reputations. And he said this in an interview with the journalist Jesse Singal, that even if it weren't true that SEGM were transphobic out to promote bans, which he tried to prove and was unable to by providing emails to Jesse Singal, even if that were not true, he still would have disavowed them, because being associated with them means being tarred and feathered. So it really speaks to the question of, at what level does it take for somebody to defend their own work? Why didn't the university just say, this is our work, we're proud of it, the way, say, a publication would if they published, a very controversial yet true story?
So the university didn't back his play, so he felt like he and his research team were on an island, and they're getting pilloried by SPLC and going after their funding sources, of course, which is what they want. And SPLC, as anybody who knows them, anybody who disagrees with them is a hate group, individually or collectively, and that's just their game. And then they unleash the barbarian hordes to harass people into submission, and it works. It's remarkable because it's so obvious what they do, and it's so obviously scurrilous. And then you're out there saying things that your own research doesn't back up, just basically, waving the white flag of intellectual surrender. But yet it still occurs. I mean, even as I said at the outset, even with like the Cass review in the UK and so many of these pediatric hospitals reversing course.
Well, that's complicated, of course. I think that the pediatric hospitals are really reversing course not because they believe sincerely in what they're doing, but under pressure from the Trump administration.
Well, I understand, but there again, the sort of the intellectual dishonesty of the people at those hospitals as well. I mean, that's sort of the point, that this is all politics, and where are the actual scientists, right?
So separately, yesterday, a YouTube video interview came out with Gordon Guyot that just has shocked the pants off of everyone who concerns themselves with this field. Mia Hughes, she wrote the WPATH Files report for Michael Schellenberger. He had been leaked all of these internal documents early last year. And then Stella O'Malley, she runs a nonprofit called GenSpect, which is a more intense version of SEGM, let's just say. They somehow or another got an interview, a lengthy hour-long interview with Gordon Guyot that they posted on YouTube yesterday, in which when confronted with this idea that he had used the term medically necessary in this big statement he had given last month, he said, absolutely not. I would jump off a bridge if that were true. Like, literally, that's literally what he said. And they're like, well, and then they, they read on the receipts. And he's like, oh, and he's like, eventually he said, like, wow, I'm a dope. And then he started criticizing them for fixating on words of his that were of lesser importance, which begs the question of, how are we supposed to know when to selectively take you seriously when you are a titan of academia? Like, seriously, it was and I must admit, and I read that, and that particular paragraph, he said he didn't write that paragraph that had that language in it. He wrote the other part. And I must say, like, I could tell there was a different tone in that paragraph. So it makes sense. But he effectively admitted that he did not read this major statement that he had put out with his name on it, which had this considerable bearing on his own reputation. So make it that what you will.
Yeah, I mean, defile yourself before the mob, whatever it takes to get them to leave you alone, I guess. I mean, but I mean, did he think that if he didn't do this complete about face, he was going to get fired from McMaster or something like that?
No, I mean, he's an august, tenured professor in his early 70s. He made this very clear to Jesse Singal in his also very lengthy interview that he gave to him a couple weeks ago, that he was very concerned about the reputations and career trajectories of his younger researchers. So there were a couple of PhD students that were working on these papers, and then a mid-career person in his lab was running it. He wasn't really running this, so he also told Jesse Singal that he was unaware that SEGM had even sponsored all these reviews, which have been going on for 4 years until earlier this year. So it really makes you wonder, if we're supposed to take you so seriously as this titan of academia, like, how is it you don't know what's going on in your own house?
Well, and it's and you note in your piece too that others who have been similarly situated to Guyette have chosen a different course. Not many, but they know exactly what he's doing too, like Michael Bailey at Northwestern.
Right. So some of the various stories that I didn't make it into the piece. Michael Bailey, very controversial. He's a sex researcher at Northwestern, and he, for example, published a paper 2 years ago about the hypothetical phenomenon, what's known as rapid onset gender dysphoria, a term that was coined by Lisa Littman in 2018. And each of them, Lisa Littman and Michael Bailey, were pilloried for these papers, very unpopular, because if it's true that adopting a trans identity and developing gender dysphoria is a product of a social contagion, that would undermine the entire medical project of providing very risky treatments to minors. So people are very eager to discredit anyone who might suggest that there's any credibility to that. So both these papers were pilloried. Ultimately, Lisa Littman's paper was withdrawn and then republished with some sort of a clarification, although a lot of people will still falsely claim that it was retracted, whereas Michael Bailey's was retracted under what he said was kind of a goalpost-moving series of pretexts that ultimately, when each successive one was disproved, this group that was advocating against him finally landed upon the last one. And he just republished it somewhat elsewhere, but he and Lisa Littman and Dr. Ken Zucker, who's a psychologist from Canada, are all developing this long-term study of following young people that could ultimately give credence to this theory. Ken Zucker had a clinic. He was basically his own titan of pediatric gender medicine, kind of in the old era before the affirming era that we're in now. And he was running this clinic in Canada, in Toronto. And similar to what happened with Guyette, this mob of activists came and started levying all of these false accusations against him, that he was running a conversion therapy clinic. And he was fired, but ultimately he sued the clinic for making false accusations about him and got an enormous settlement. But it's still sort of claimed that they won, essentially. So in each of these cases, what happens is activists will brandish a scalp afterwards as a warning to others of what could happen if they don't toe the party line. Right. And the whole point is they are trying to subvert scientific inquiry. I mean, that's the thing they don't want. It's sort of similar to this story out of the Pacific Northwest, this Boise State senior dude who wanted to run the girls cross country team at Boise State. He got a favorable ruling in the Ninth Circuit,
but he was going to go to the Supreme Court, and he withdrew from the case, and he asked the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah, that happened this week.
Yeah, and they asked the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to rescind their decision because they knew they were going to lose at the Supreme Court level, and him and the ACLU didn't want to set that precedent, so they walked away from it. But I mean, they don't want things to go to any sort of finality, any sort of enlightenment. They're opposed to those things because of the danger they present.
Yeah, I might not be as savvy about that case as you are, but from what I understand, the ostensible reason was this young collegiate athlete did not want the social pressure of having the spotlight on them. Whereas there's still another complaint in that case that comes out of West Virginia. So the case has not died. So it'll likely still just continue to the Supreme Court this term, but at least ostensibly what they said was, I don't want to have just everyone yelling at me all the time. I just want to get off my life.
But the ACLU backed out too. The ACLU is not afraid of scrutiny.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah. So there's something. I think there's some gamesmanship going on there, and that's what Alliance for Defending Freedom concluded as well. But I mean, regardless, the larger point is that, you know, they really don't want these issues to be fully litigated or investigated. They want to essentially people just to genuflect before a political position they've taken.
Well, what's interesting is that there was so much innuendo tossed around about Guyot's lab that they were trafficking with a pseudoscience organization. But despite the fact there was one paper that was critical, at least, of the mastectomy paper out of the Guyot lab, no one has really tried to insinuate that the Guyot lab actually put out bad research or pointed to anything that was like so egregious that it would have to be retracted. And meanwhile, the Guyot lab, after Gordon Guyot said that he put out a statement that he didn't read, meanwhile, he and his co-authors from McMaster are trying to take their names off of the remaining two papers that they haven't published that were commissioned by SEGM. And so one in particular, which is about binding the breasts and tucking the scrotum and penis amongst transgender young people, the systematic review about those acts, they're trying to only leave the two co-authors on the paper that weren't in McMaster. They're two independent researchers. And between the two people, they didn't cover all the work in the paper. So while at the same time Guyot saying he signed something that he didn't read, he's also asking people explicitly to put their name over work, some of which they didn't do, and to essentially deceive the public by putting out work that they pretended they didn't do. So I sent a very long email last night asking them, like, how is that academically honest to do something like that? I mean, it's extremely rare in academia to take your name off a paper when it's about to be published. And I mean, it only implies that there's something wrong with your own work. So if you're implying that, how are we to trust your credibility about anything? And also, it really begs the question, if there are other funders who want to commission this group, you know, can they trust them to work in good faith and not badmouth them in the end? And they were under contract. They had to publish papers regardless of what they found. And by the way, you know, ultimately, SEGM decided, you know, with mutual agreement, what questions they would ask in these papers. But after that, they were totally independent. There was a firewall to ensure, you know, lack of conflicts of interest between them. So they were just off on their own. It wasn't as SEGM was whispering in their ear the entire time.
Benjamin Ryan, New York City-based reporter. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, Washington Post, The Atlantic, among other publications, including unheard.com, where you can find his piece that we've been discussing, The Taming of a Gender Researcher. Great story. I mean, great reporting on this story. Benjamin Ryan, thanks a
lot.
Thanks
you
for joining.
You can find more of my writing at benryan.substack.com. Thanks a lot.
benryan.substack.com. Okay, thank you. Yeah. And Ben Ryan joins us in the Turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hey, Chicagoland, your trusted friend Jeff here from JeffBuysYourHouse.com. Over the past few months, I've shared how our veteran-led team serves Chicagoland homeowners. Today, I want to share with you what your neighbors are saying about working with us. Like Mary in Downers Grove, who wrote, "They listened to my concerns about moving from my home of 30 years and created a timeline that worked for me." Or Tom and Carol Stream, who said, "Their team helped me sort through 40 years of memories with respect and patience." This is why hundreds of your neighbors have given us a 5-star Google review and an A+ rating with the BBB. We don't just buy houses. We help people through life's transitions with understanding and care. No repairs needed, no cleanout required, and always on your timeline. Ready to work with the home buying team your neighbors trust? Sell your house to the trusted source by calling us at 630-895-9530. That's 630-895-9530 or jeffbuysyourhouse.com.
Is your business using Windows 10? Very soon, updates for your system will no longer be available. Yep, the clock is ticking on Windows 10. Microsoft will no longer provide free updates, technical support, and security fixes for Windows 10 and previous versions. So take action before your business is impacted. Turnkey is offering a free Windows readiness check. The assessment will analyze your network needs, that is, and prepare your business for Windows 11. Don't wait. If you're not ready, your system is vulnerable and could be hacked. All your data could be lost. Can your business afford that? Visit turnkey.pro to sign up for your free assessment. Turnkey can help prepare you for the transition, ensuring a seamless move from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Ask about the free Windows readiness check today. Visit turnkey.pro to do that. Before there's no support for Windows 10, that's turnkey.pro. Turnkey, your small business champions.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at truepowergenerator.com. That's truepowergenerator.com. And right now, AM 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty with their Generac. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
Want to see if you could pay less in taxes? Try the quick and easy tax calculator at willsave.com. Yes, a free tax calculator. That's WILSAVE.com. Calculate how you could keep more of your hard-earned money and give less to Uncle Sam, especially in retirement. Get your free tax analysis today at willsave.com. And don't forget to tune in to Protecting Your Assets with Steve Shyman every Saturday morning at 8, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
AM 560, The Answer.
Is your zip code your destiny? A new study that challenges the conventional wisdom on that question. We'll talk to one of those researchers. He is University of Chicago economics professor James Hecman, who joins us at 8:38. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 57 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. The Department of Homeland Security is launching Operation Midway Blitz to target criminal illegals who they say have flocked to Chicago and Illinois.
The announcement of Operation Midway Blitz comes after President Trump made multiple commitments to clean up the city's crime problem. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says if the president follows through on threats to deploy the National Guard, it would be the wrong solution to a real problem. Meanwhile, the Louisiana National Guard is now assisting ICE agents with immigration operations in that state. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Tennessee is the first state in the U.S. to mandate gun safety training for public school students. The new law addresses gun-related tragedies and accidental shootings. Students will learn gun safety practices like how to handle, finding a gun, and general firearm safety. The curriculum will be carried out by each school district and will not involve real guns or ammunition. A House Task Force on Government Transparency will be holding a hearing today on UFOs. The chair of the task force on the declassification of federal secrets says the American people deserve maximum transparency from the federal government on sightings, acquisitions, and examinations of UAPs and whether they pose any potential threat to American safety. News is a service of Salem Surround, providing your business with industry-leading digital marketing strategy designed to surround your target audience and drive action. Go to surroundchicago.com today. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Scott Jennings wants the punishment to be harsh.
Look, my view is if people abused their positions and engaged in activities that at a minimum were designed to upend and effectively inject some massive amounts of disinformation in our political system, well, they deserve some consequences. Having your national security clearance taken away might be the least of it.
The Scott Jennings Show. Weekdays at 1, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer.
Wow. At the time of this being written, both gold and silver are up some 40%. That's 40% in just 1 year. In fact, this past year, gold has broken all-time historic records by hundreds of dollars an ounce. And unlike all other financial instruments used today, that historic record goes back thousands of years. In times like these, prices have never been better on most collector and gold coins. Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is trying to keep up with demand. So they're paying the most ever on not only most gold coins and bars, but also those old coin and paper money collections. They're especially looking for the scarcer dates and higher grade coins. Take advantage of the record high market price and our huge demand now, whether you're buying or selling, or just want to find out their worth. Fox Valley Coins is the place to go. Fox Valley Coins is on Route 59, just 1 light north of I-88 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
We couldn't decide if we needed in-home care for Dad.
Right. Just some help here and there with bathing, organizing his meds, a walk through the neighborhood.
Oh, exactly. But everywhere we looked, we had a 4-hour minimum. It was more care than he needed. And it didn't make sense to spend extra for it.
Then we found Senior Helpers of Naperville Southwest. No minimum hours. We were shocked.
Now a caregiver stops by once or twice a week for just an hour or two to help with the small things that make a big difference.
And Mom loves the visits. It's not just help. It's companionship.
At Senior Helpers of Naperville Southwest, we understand that not every family needs round-the-clock care. We serve DuPage, Cook, Kane, Kendall, and Will counties. We conduct free in-home assessments and we guarantee compatibility. Call Senior Helpers of Naperville Southwest today at 331-281-0728. Again, that's 331-281-0728. And tell them AM 560 sent you. Senior Helpers of Naperville Southwest. Senior care, only better.
This hourly segment is brought to you by the Alpha Wealth Group, bringing the trilogy of estate, tax, and investment planning together. Visit alphawealthgroup.com for a free report.
From the Team Hawkburg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. It is a mess on the Edens this morning. Honestly, it is a mess. Inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, it is 92 minutes. 2 right lanes are blocked. This stems from a center lane, a pothole in the center lane near Lake Avenue. This has you just jammed from the Edens Expressway spur to Skokie. It's also just, it's just a mess. On the outbound side, about 31 minutes. On the Kennedy, inbound from Montrose to the Burn Interchange, 46 minutes. Outbound, 21 minutes. This report is sponsored by Blindster.com. What if they can guarantee the price of Bitcoin will be $1 million in 2030? Well, they can't. But they can guarantee that you'll save a lot of money on blinds at their company. Blindster.com. Free samples, free shipping, and guaranteed to fit. Shop at Blindster.com today. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a quick check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be partly sunny and pleasant with a high of 77. Expect partly cloudy skies tonight with a low of 57. Tomorrow will bring a mix of clouds and sun, reaching a high of 81. Thursday looks mostly sunny and warm with a high of 82. Friday will be very warm with a mix of sun and clouds, reaching a high of 86. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Who dares question MIT economists? I'll tell you who. James Hecman and his colleague at the University of Chicago. Very interesting. The question whether zip code is destiny. And this is not an inconsequential question because, of course, you have policymakers that are always looking to, in the name of equity, provide opportunity to neighborhoods and communities that are allegedly deprived of opportunity. And so if moving to a high opportunity neighborhood would benefit people in a low opportunity neighborhood, well, then just start moving people from, the south side of Chicago to Winnetka, and everything's going to work out well for all parties involved, right? It's based on this paper from 7 years ago by two MIT economists that basically argue that there's a causal relationship between neighborhoods and outcomes for children in terms of education, lifetime earnings, those sorts of things. Well, this has been examined, as I mentioned, by James Hecman and a colleague of his at Chicago, and they have a different understanding of what the dynamic is here, and it has real-world public policy implications. For example, as Hecman notes in his piece, $50 million project authorized by Congress that began in August 2022 will run until 2028 to move families to quote-unquote opportunity neighborhoods in Cleveland, Minneapolis, L.A., Nashville, Tennessee, New Orleans, New York City, Pittsburgh, Rochester, L.A. And in L.A. alone, officials using $4 million from the project to relocate 1,950 families. I'm surprised Chicago isn't on the list of this too. Anything, that represents the zeitgeist in big blue cities usually include Chicago. For more on the topic, please be joined by Professor Hecman, who's not only an economics professor at the University of Chicago and a senior fellow at the Archbridge Institute, he's also a 2000 Nobel laureate in economics. We don't get to talk to Nobel laureates that much. Professor Hecman, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, it's good to be able to talk about these questions because I completely agree with you that these issues are not really stated very clearly or very honestly. And I think it's huge for public policy that we really examine what the evidence shows, and not only what it shows, but what's missing and what needs to be added to the public policy discussion.
So give us, in your words, the conclusion that was drawn from the researchers at MIT, and then what you and your colleague concluded from your research.
Well, the researchers and their allies, there are a number of people, the large foundations like Gates and MacArthur and many other more liberal or progressive foundations have supported this work very actively. And their conclusion was that if you put a child in a better neighborhood, and they measured neighborhood quality by asking how well people in that neighborhood succeeded when they grew up as adults. And they had a very crude measure. They used Internal Revenue Service data that was, for many years, not even available to most researchers. When I originally discussed the paper at Princeton some 7 years ago, making essentially the same point, I couldn't even get access to the data, even though I was promised it. Nonetheless, the New York Times, just before the discussion, presented a whole upside column and range of issues, essentially reiterating, and supporting this kind of evidence. The key idea is basically move people to better places, and they'll be better people. And what's nuance is that we move the children of these people to better places, and if we do so, that means that the children will grow up to be healthy, thriving adults and will do better than if they stayed in their old neighborhoods. And the problem that I see, and I think is very important, is the fact that nobody in this analysis takes into account the role of the family and the fact that the family is playing a critical role. They look at data. It's not an experiment they're looking at. They're looking at some kind of concocted econometric exercise along details, which I'm sure your listeners don't want to hear. But the fact is that the idea is that if you put a kid in in a good neighborhood for another few years, that child will do even better than if you take the child and keep him in the old neighborhood or give him fewer years of exposure to the good neighborhood. And so there was a notion that the neighborhood was really playing a central role and that relocation was essentially the key. Well, let me be very clear. I want to be very clear that good neighborhoods with good schools, low crime rate, better peers, there's no question that helps children and helps parents pick the neighborhoods and schools for their children. There's no question. But, and this is the key part that's missing, what people are not looking into is the role of the parent in choosing those neighborhoods. What we found was that parents who are more advantaged and that parents where children are thriving are ones who locate in good neighborhoods even before the child is born. And so my co-author, Sadek Esagnia, who is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Chicago, came up with a very clever idea. Namely, he used the methodology of these researchers and said, okay, look, they're saying that the exposure to the neighborhood should essentially be the story that helps them succeed or fail in life. So he points out something very interesting that illustrates the critical role of the parents. It turns out that when parents locate and parents locate to better neighborhoods, that parents, who are more concerned in this regard, when they look at the birth weight of the child, before the child even grows up in the neighborhood, before the child even arrives in the world, that the birth weight and the birth length essentially are much better, much higher for those parents who make the choices early and who show concern and care for the parent. And therefore, the story really is not about where the parents placed the kid as much as what the parents cared about. And so things like child health, the reason why I mentioned birth weight is that birth weight and birth length are both very strong predictors of later success in life. And so those initial decisions made by parents and the fact that it's the caring parents that matter. The authors of these studies will make another argument and say, well, look, we look at siblings of children who move to these neighborhoods. And the siblings of children, the younger children who move to the neighborhoods, benefit a lot, too, when they move to the neighborhood. But they fail to understand the crucial role of parenting. And this is a study that gets totally neglected in public policy. And that is, what do parents do? Parents pick the neighborhoods. Parents exploit the benefits of the neighborhoods. One of the recurring studies in many of these areas is basically that when you give people universal opportunities, you give people this, that, or the other thing, it's the more concerned parents, the more committed parents who actually end up giving their children those advantages, accessing them. So even though we have a universal welfare state, say, or universal environments, it's the parents who exploit the advantages of those environments. And so it gets to the basic point that America is not willing to discuss. And housing is just another superficial, Band-Aid on a problem that's deep. And the deep problem is the American family, which is in free fall in many quarters of the society and needs to be addressed. And we can do it. And there are ways to go about it, but they're not necessarily government programs, but government programs can be instituted that help teach parenting, that foster the engagement that make the child successful. And so these other programs, people want to have universal basic income. There's another whole line of research. So, and the universal basic income, which Cook County does have, to the discredit of Tony Preckwinkle and this group, has been shown universally to have no effect on child outcomes. I mean, even the most avid advocates, millions and millions of dollars have been spent. A recent paper issued by the NBER pointed out that after millions spent, there was no greater gain by just giving people money. What's missing, and the crucial ingredient of American life that's missing now, is parents and parenting. And so I think it's really important that we refocus our attention on what I think is the central problem in American society. It's not better housing. It's not this. It's not that. It's actually really getting parents engaged and having parents who are concerned about their own children and willing to protect them. As an example, we know in Chicago that we had many families living in the Robert Taylor homes. And if it was all just environment, we would think every one of those kids living in the Robert Taylor homes would be a criminal, would grow up to be somehow disordered, and somehow a violent member of society. Some did, but quite a few didn't. And the secret ingredient was always the mother, the family, the caretaker, whoever was in charge, of the life of the child, actually taking an active ingredient and protecting the child against that environment.
Well, and
I think that's what's. Well, sorry, I'm not talking too much.
No, that's fine. But I wanted you to, because there's also in addition to what's going on right now, you mentioned, you also reference in your piece in the 1990s there was a quote unquote move to opportunity program experiment, and we should look at efforts that have been made in this direction in the past based on this theory that didn't work out so well. So what happened with move to opportunity?
Well, movement to opportunity had some effect. If you looked at happiness of the children, it had some effect on child outcomes. But when you look at the children as adults, no effect. And in fact, even the proponents of this program will argue that as well. So the fact is that there wasn't any lasting effect. But I will put it this way. Moving to opportunity also was highly selective. Which children actually which families participated? Not all families offered the bills, the subsidies that allowed them to move to opportunity, took up the vouchers they were giving them. Some of them chose not to.
It's like school. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's like school vouchers. I mean, they're available, but it's the motivated parent who wants a better educational opportunity for their kid that's going to seek out the scholarship. So
exactly.
So
and
there's
also
self-selection.
The better motivated parent who wants to seek out the housing voucher to lead the kid to a better environment.
Right.
And that was not accounted for in these studies. You see, there's another whole issue here. We could go on for hours, and you don't want that. I'm not going to do it for you. But the fact is that there's this blind belief in this kind of very simple-minded statistics. You run an experiment, but you don't notice who is it who took part in that experiment. Everybody doesn't participate. There's a lot of non-participation. Who wanted these opportunities? So I agree. I think I'd be out of my mind if I said better schools didn't help children.
Yeah.
We know that's true. We also know that better neighborhoods where children can play and be free of fear and crime and all that clearly can't hurt. But the people who pick those, who make those neighborhoods viable and make it valuable for their children, are the parents. and they just get factored out of the equation.
Right.
Because you know why? I'll tell you why. And you know exactly why. And that is because parenting in certain racial, ethnic groups is a disaster. And it leads then to a society-wide disaster. People don't want to talk about it. That's the problem.
And and other people want to conclude there's a, like the MIT researchers, that there's this causal effect. If you just move them, then this will occur, and it's that simple. And of course, as you're saying, it's not that simple. The birth length thing, it was funny because I read Alex Tabarrok, who's a economist at George Mason, as I'm sure you know. Yeah, he loves the using birth length instead of adult earnings. He says obviously moving can't affect birth length, yet your colleague in his placebo experiment finds that children parents who move to taller neighborhoods have taller children, in parallel with the MIT researchers find that children parents who move to higher income neighborhoods have higher income children, which is basically a way to submarine their contention and say obviously this is not causal.
Right. No, it's funny. It's funny. I have a story like this that might, if you have enough time for me to tell it,
Sure.
which is a few years ago, I was working for the United Nations. I did a study of inequality in Panama, poverty in Panama. Outside the canal zone, the country's pretty poor. But when I was there doing this study for the UN, there was a housing project that was built by the dictator. Actually, it was Noriega and his government at the time, but not so important, Noriega. But what happened is they brought in a group of indigenous people from the jungle to give them the opportunity to live in Panama City in modern housing. And the beautiful thing about the experiment, yes, they gave them these nice high-rise buildings with big balconies. Well, what happened? When the indigenous people came to Panama City, they brought with them their culture. What was their culture? Cooking food on open fires. Mm-hmm. Where did they cook their food? They cooked their food on their balconies. And sure enough, you can imagine what happened to the buildings. They burned up. And this is the mentality of sociologists and people who don't want to think about choice that people make. That's the thing. It's amazing how thick-minded people are about these things. They want to argue that it's everything but the family factors. Choice doesn't matter. They want to argue that we're zombies, that people are automatons, and there's no role for understanding how to make choices better, and to promote choice, but not to. So anyway, I think it's a kind of study. It's very attractive to many people, but you see, it's a palliative. The idea would be we give these people vouchers. We don't tackle the fundamental failure of American family life in many quarters of society. And interestingly enough, Obama and many spokesmen for the black community have focused specifically on fathers, have focused specifically on marriages and families. And even, recently now in this case in Michigan where a group of people who had a family that had a son who committed a murder in a school, the parents were held responsible. And that was a wonderful path-breaking thing. Parents are responsible. And somehow the notion of responsibility and the role of a parent is minimized because there are too many parents out there who are not responsible and probably shouldn't be parents, but definitely are, and they definitely do harm for the society at large.
James Hecman, econ professor, University of Chicago, senior fellow at the Archbridge Institute, and a 2000 Nobel laureate in economics. Professor Hecman, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Good to talk to you.
Okay. Take care.
And Professor Hecman joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
My friend Paula just remodeled her kitchen. I feel bad. It's so bland.
Yeah. Everyone's using the same templated designs these days or just refacing cabinets.
Let's check out Forever Remodeling. They do full and custom kitchen remodels from the ground up, just for us.
It'd be nice to have a kitchen that's truly ours.
Exactly.
Don't get the same kitchen design as everyone else. Visit Forever Remodeling today at foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com. And tell them AM 560 sent you.
Are you tired of exposing your retirement to stock market risk? How would you like the potential to participate in credited interest from market-indexed returns and limit the downside? Join Mark Kohler for the Retirement and Income Radio Show, Sunday afternoons at 3. You can also call Mark now for your complimentary customized Retirement and Income Kit and Retirement and Income Book at 844-619-SAFE. Mark Kohler, protecting wealth since 1990. That's 844-619-7233.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. DOGE has done a lot for American taxpayers. One of its chief benefits has been highlighting the government fraud and corruption eating up Americans' tax money. Investigators at the Senate DOGE caucus are reporting examples of abuse that should light taxpayers' hair on fire. At the Department of Agriculture, a supposed anti-fraud investigator allegedly used her position to steal $36 million in federal SNAP benefits intended for the needy. The report says thousands of government workers are collecting paychecks and taking unemployment benefits at the same time. Investigators reported that yet others made up fake children's names to pocket illegal survivor benefits using the names of actual dead adults. Perhaps it's no wonder the government employee unions resist when DOGE seeks agency information. But American taxpayers deserve honest, accountable government. I'm Carol Platt-Liebau.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Xumo Play.
Shop the AM 560 store. Order t-shirts, hoodies, and more from your favorite AM 560 brands, including Proft University and The Sean Thompson Show when you go to 560theanswer.com/store.
AM 560, The Answer.
Close out with a little Dave Swirsky. This may be the only time that we can still have some optimism for the Bears. Even though they lost, one game in, there's still hope, right?
bust this stash out once again. This off-season's been long, but I'm back with a song.
The season may be even longer. It is now 9 o'clock, AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Israel goes on the attack against Hamas. I'm Dave Anthony.